Welcome to our class in iyun b'Gemara, which is really iyun in the Chumash. We're just trying to find out exactly what Hashem meant when He said that the mazik has to pay b'meitiv sedei b'meitiv karmel. Now we have our flow chart here, which is keeping track of where we started and where we've come, and that's a very important chart. There were certain basic milestones that happened, and they just very quickly I'm just going to mention them. Rebbe Akiva was the first milestone. It took us out of the simple meaning of the pasuk, which is if you damage someone, you have to, the simple meaning of the Gemara was saying that you have to somehow evaluate the damage according to the best of the field, and took us into payment. Okay, so that was a very big foundation stone, that the Meitiv Sedeu is a means of payment. You have to pay with the best of your field. Now, the next milestone, which happened in the Gemara, was a bias problem, because Torah then says that there's two ways you can pay, actually three ways, and two of them seem to be contradictory. You can pay with the best of your field, you can pay with money, or you can pay with Shaveh Kesef. So money, you could say, is like the best of your field, could be, or maybe not. That was a biased question. But definitely, the Brisa said even Subin. So if you can use Subin, which is the worst of the worst metaltal, how come all of a sudden the Torah says when it comes to a field, you have to give the best? So that was a very important junction, those two Pesukim, and there were 5 answers, and we were left with really Rav Huna, who again simply stated that really Kesef is like Meitav, don't think it's less, and when it comes to Metaltalin, only if you don't have Kesef and Meitav, then you can use Metaltalin. That's how Rabbeinu Tam learned on Daf Tes, and that's how we Pesak L'Halacha. The Rif learned, like Reb Papa, simply that the revolution of Reb Papa was a real revolution. We thought that Meitav was the best, and the Torah had to make things equivalent to Meitav, like money, and Reb Huna even said that Shaveh Kesef never even got up there, just when you don't have them. But Reb Papa seemed to say that there was he made this big Copernican revolution to say that really we're just talking about money, and when you're talking about money, what's the best? Kesef is the best. And everything is looked at in terms of the standard of Kesef. So then Metaltalin is like Kesef because you can get it very easily, and it was a chiddush to say that Karka can be used as a means of paying back, since you can't convert it very easily to Kesef. But the Torah said, give Meitav, and that will compensate for the lack of customers, because the customers that are around will be excited. That's how we learned the Rif. That's how we learned the Rush. When we looked at the Rambam, we saw something very unusual, because the Rambam, which is quoted in the Shulchan Aruch, all of a sudden gives a precedent to Metaltalin. You kesher the basin, when the basin is going to collect, it collects from Metaltalin. Now that we didn't understand from anyone. We thought, according to where we're learning Reb Pop, everything is equal, and according to Reb Huna, the Metaltalin is just like money, and the only thing that's not good is B'diavad is, I'm sorry. Reb Huna said, yes, Metaltalin, that Meitav, Karka, is like money, and the worst thing is Metaltalin, yet the Rambam says that Metaltalin has a precedent over Karka. So that sort of didn't fit in anywhere. The Ramah that goes a step further, and he even says that money is better than Metaltalin. So he says if you have money, you have to give it first. You have Metaltalin, then you give Metaltalin. If you don't have money Metaltalin, you give Karka. Nuki Yosef linked those two shitas up with Reb Papa and said a svara. Since Reb Papa changed the standard, his revolution was to change the standard to money. The Torah is talking about getting money back in the hands of the Nizak. Therefore, money is the best. The second best is Metaltalin, and the third best is Karka. So that's the position of the Ramah, simply. And the Rambam doesn't hold there's any difference between Karka and Metaltalin. We don't know why. But you could simply in Svar, there's not much of a difference because it's called Meitav. The Gemara calls it Meirav. Papa says it's Meitav, and it's only that Karka is the man out. So that was the Rambam, and that's where we were holding in the system. Now we came to the Tur. Now the Tur is again one of these junction. The Rush is really one of these junction points, one of these milestones, because he's in Ashkenaz learning he's a Baal Tosfos. I mean, he learns with the Tosfos in Ashkenaz, and then when his Rebbe was put in jail, and after they came after him, he escaped to Sfarad. Okay, so he is an important junction because both the learning and the halachic learning in Sfarad come together in his works. And he's the Rosh. And he writes a book, we said, in the style of the Sfardim, like the Rif, which is a summation book of the halachot. So he doesn't go as far as the Rambam, make a whole new book, but he does concentrate on the halacha. And some people have said that, said that he actually is writing on the Rif. It's a commentary. But whatever it is, he paskins with the Rif against Rabbeinu Tam. That was the upshot of the Rush. And he said clearly that when it comes to metaltal, when it comes to Malva and Lova, however, there the one who's collecting, which is the Malva, has a right to demand money over metaltalin from the over karka, money over karka from the Lova, because he gave the Lova money, so he can demand anything that's closer to money. But that's there's no relay, not shaykh here in Nezikin. So that's the Rush. The Tur then writes his halacha. It looks like he's more or less copying the Rambam. And there we broke into the two interpretations of the Tur. There's the interpretation that wants to put the sun going around the earth, to use that analogy, and then there's an interpretation that says, no, the earth is going around the sun. What does that mean? Both the Bach and the Drisha explain that the Tur is just following the Rush, who's following the Rif, and he's just explaining that don't think that when the Mazik, if the Mazik wants to give metaltalin, that he can't, because the Nizak says, hey, it says in the Torah, Meitav. Don't think such a thing, because the Chiddush is that Allah is not like Huna. There's no special preference of metaltalin over karka, like Rav Huna, and also the pasuk says Meitav Sedeyu, but we know that Rav Papa holds that they're all equal, and that's the Shita of the Rif, and that's Shita of the Rush. So he's just explaining a case where the Torah is just explaining that if the Mazik wants to give metaltalin and the Nizak wants karka, he has no power to give it. In other words, the case is the metaltalin is better than karka in terms that the Mazik can give it, and there's no claim of the Nizak that say the opposite. So that keeps everything, that keeps the world the way we always knew it. That means the Rif, the Rush, and the Tur are all learning the same way, but the Tur is just trying to spell out that when the halacha clearly that when you give metaltalin, the Nizak can't claim meitav karka. That's all. Now, the revolutionary, so to speak, here is the Beis Yosef, because the Beis Yosef tells us that we're talking about a case where the Mazik wants to give karka, and the Nizak has the right to say, no, I want metaltalin, just like he does in Balchov. Okay? And the Beis Yosef says, I know the Rush made a distinction, but the Torah didn't. So the Levushir Shushan defends the Beis Yosef, and he says that the Torah really is following the Shittas of Rambam. Now, the Beis Yosef never mentioned that Rambam should know, but he uses a similar language, and he can fit into the Torah language, and it could be that the Rambam holds a different shita that the Yad Nitzik is El Yonah. But anyway, that was the basic split in understanding in the Torah. The whole problem started with the Torah because he quoted the Rambam, not completely, but he did it looks like he's quoting the Rambam, and these people who are learning the Rambam want to say that the Rambam says Yad Nizak El Yona. We don't know how the Rambam got to it exactly. We have some ideas that from the Nuka Yosef, but it's a Chiddush in the Torah because it's saying that the Torah is not following the Rush and not following his Masara of his father, but Kan Zayin, the Torah. By the way, I spoke to my other student, and he spoke to someone who knows the Torah very well, and knows the Shulchan Aruch, and said, although it's a general rule that the Beis Yosef goes 2 out of 3, it doesn't happen all the time. And over here, well, we didn't get to the Beis Yosef yet. I'm not sorry. We didn't get to Shulchan Aruch yet. But in that rule of 2 or 3, which is the Shulchan Aruch rule, he says there are exceptions. So we don't have to worry. We were talking last time, I think, about the 2 and 3 and how you get the 2 against the 3 in this case. Okay, whatever. The point is...
Did he also say that he said that he's way towards the Rambam? If it's not 2 out of 3, I mean?
No.
That's what I heard. So that's what I was wondering.
Oh, that's what you heard. No, but it's very good. He is weighted toward him. Okay. Anyway, fine. So here we have the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch quotes, we said the Rambam kimat word for word, except for little grammatical changes, and it calls Meitav Sedei, it calls it Yafe. The Rambam says Yafe b'nechasav, and he says... I will look at it again. I forgot the word lashon, but he says Yiddish b'nechasav, but two minor little changes. But it's almost word for word the Rambam. Now the same players in the, so to speak, in the Torah come on the Shulchan Aruch now, and they say, wait a minute, what's going on here? So the Drisha is Reb Yeshua Folk, Katz, and he writes on the Shulchan Aruch, and his name in the Shulchan Aruch is the Sma, the Sefer Iris Enayim. And what he does is take what he said about the Torah, and he says the same thing about the Shulchan Aruch. So the Shulchan Aruch the Shulchan Aruch, when it wrote the Beis Yosef, was on the Torah, but he himself, the Shulchan Aruch himself, wrote the halacha according to Yad Mazik El Yono. That's what he said. We'll go into that a little better, but that's what he said. The Shach now is going to come onto the floor, and that's where we're holding. He's going to disagree completely with all the people that ever came to say, to these people here, the Bach and the Drisha, and of course the Sma, anyone who said that Yad Mazik Elyon is a shita of the Torah or the Shulchan Aruch is wrong in the eyes of the Shach. And he's going to prove the point that both Torah and the Shulchan Aruch are all a Rambam, and the Rambam holds Yad Nizak Al Yona, and he's going to bring his proofs that that's true. So hold on to your seats, because here it goes. Okay. Okay. So we're down to this chart. I'm not going to go through the whole chart, but basically, again, you have the Torah, you have the Beis Yosef in blue. I said that because that's a commentary. He's just commenting on the Torah, and he puts the Torah in the camp that says Yad Nizak Al Enyon. Here, Shushan defends him with, as you remember, with the pasuk that says Meitav Sedeu, and we're always trying to find the best for the Nizak. That's why the Torah says Meitav Sedeu, to give the Nizak the best deal, and he has the ability to then decide to take Metaltlin over Karka. The Drisha and the Bach attack that. They say, no, the Torah is really holding like the Rush, and he's just simply saying that when the Mazik wants to give Metaltlin, he can, and don't think there's any advantage of Karka. Okay, so that's what they say. They say he's just a Rush, and they say the Rambam also holds that. I mean, the Bach says the Rambam, and he brings the Rav Hamagid, who's a commentary on the Rambam, to support him, and he says that's Peshat in the Torah. So now we're investigating the Shach. Okay, the Shach now is going to take on the Sma, the Drisha, and the Bach, and he's going to say, you guys got it wrong. I'm going to show you that the Shulchan Aruch is really the Rambam. It's really the Rambam. And what set you wrong was that you think that the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch is Tosfos and Rabbeinu Tam. And that's what prejudiced you to read both the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch in terms of that halacha. But the Shulchan Aruch has nothing to do, and neither does the Torah, have nothing to do with the Ashkenazi point of view here. It's really pure Rambam. And I'll show you that the Rambam holds Yad Nizak. Okay, so he brings all these people. I put them in gray because he's going to say this is fine, a great Ashkenazic way of learning. Rabbeinu Tam, the Tosfos, the Rush, the Mordechai, the other poskim, even the Milchi Yosef talks about the other poskim that say everything is equal. That's fine, but it's not the Rambam, and it's not the Torah, it's not the Shulchan Aruch. Torah and the Shulchan Aruch will show you is the Rambam, and I'll show you how the Rambam gets to his din, which no one has spoken about yet. It's going to be a very exciting revelation, and I'll bring a Rishon, the Rivan, to prove it, and I'll bring the Balak Trumas, which is a very early halachic book, to prove it, who brings Rabbeinu Hanano, who has such an opinion, and it's really going to stem, just to give you a heads up here, on how we read Reb Huna. Which is rather shocking, because we kept reading Reb Huna the way that Rashi does, and Rabbeinu Tam, is that Kesev and Meitav are the best, and if you don't have them, that's only then can you use Metalton. It's the worst. He's going to read Reb Huna in a revolutionary way that will put the Rambam's position right clearly in front of us, that really it's Kesev and Metaltalin first and only Meitav second. And he's going to do that by reading the Rav Huna, and he'll back it up with other Rishonim, Isaac say themselves. So that's going to be the halacha. It's moved totally toward the Sephardic position. It has nothing to do with the position of the Ashkenazic school. So that was a overview. Okay. We got to do it because we got to get our heads know where we are, and that's why, it's very easy to lose, and say lose cup, lose the focus, but that's really what's happening here. So, B'kitzer, we have a statement in both the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch that says, Govin mehabetalton techila. Okay, now that's a surprising statement. So as I said, you're either going to be flat earth people, and insist the sun goes around the world, and make the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch into the standard people of the Ashkenazic school, or you're going to be a revolutionary and go with the Rambam and say that folks have to tell you it's the opposite way around. The sun goes around the earth, and we have a totally different way of learning, and then prove your point. So that's where the shach comes in. Stylistically, important to note, you always quote the person you're commenting on, and then you have to show how his position is untenable, and then you do a substitution and you explain what the true position is. That's the pattern that we've seen throughout the learning, throughout the Gemara. You always first have to remove the opposition before you can replace. Okay, it's called, what is it called? Search and replace. Okay, right? That's what you have to do. Okay, that's their heart. You're just going to say, I'm here and this is what I think. You have to explain why the other person's system doesn't work and why your system is correct. Okay, so now we're ready for the shach. Now this time we're going to go through the shach together. You're going to read, and Baruch Hashem, I was able to get the sources. I mean, from my friend there, well, digital sources, and we'll look at them, and we'll see what the shach is accomplishing over here. Okay, so his aim really, as we said, is to move both the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch into the camp of the Rambam and explain the Rambam his way against all the other people that were keeping the Shulchan Aruch and the Torah in the camp of Ashkenazim. Okay, and again, we're not talking about any racism here. We just there happens to be two different ways of learning. Nothing to do. I mean, the Rambam, if he was here, we would fall down the ground. I mean, in awe of him. So I just want to make that clear. We're not. Although I'm bringing it as two camps, the camps are learning camps. They're not camps based on any type of silliness. Okay. Great. So now I'm going to put you on the floor, and we're going to read again, okay? And this time I'll just go to the sources, and which are linked, Baruch Hashem, and we can see what he has to say.
Okay, so from the beginning, yeah? From the
From
beginning of
Shach from the top. Yeah, we have to do the Shach from the beginning.
Okay. Koivin mehametaltel tchila.
A quote from the Shulchan Aruch.
Quote from Shulchan Aruch that they take, namely the judges, presumably, take from the metaltalin. That's where they collect the money to pay back the nizak.
Right. Now, even though a note, the difference between the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam, that we should look at, that's a very significant difference here, here's the Rambam. Based in Niskakin Ligvos. That's the Rambam. And that's really the Lashon of the Shulchan Aruch. But the Tur says, Keshabayin Lagvos. He cuts out the word based in. So again, you could say Lav Davka. He wrote a book called Choshen Mishpat. We're talking about the based in. That's the whole tour. This whole section is about the laws of Mishpatim. So he doesn't have to write it. Or you could say, no, he purposely left it out because he has a different shita. So the people who are with the tour pushing them into the Ashkenazic shita will explain what they say. And the Rambam has his own reasons because he says there's a din in based in. Okay, the Shulchan Aruch writes practically word for word the Rambam. So those people that want to push now the Shulchan Aruch into the Ashkenazic school are going to have to put the Rambam in the Ashkenazic school too, because he quotes the Rambam literally word for word. So that's where we're holding. So these fine points have to be brought out because it's on these fine points like brain surgery, the very delicate operations here, that big movements will happen. Okay, so we said this. I'm sorry. We have to go down a little more. And that's what he says. So, Shulchan Aruch, go and tell him to clean it. Now he picks up Kasav Asma. Okay. I just put my little gray stuff in.
And this is a quote.
This quote, a direct quote.
Yeah, direct quote. The So the Sma says that because apparently it's more convenient for the damager to pay with movables and land.
The movable land, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Overland, right?
Yeah. So the velamadu the af im ein hamazik lefadem legovenu mimetaltu, and we learned that even if the mazik is not actually in front of us in court, then we take from the court takes from the metaltalin, from the movables. Abovadai im mazik gila dato denicha. That if certainly Kalvachomer, I guess we'd say, also if the mazik is in our presence in court, and he specifies explicitly that he would like to hold on to his metaltalin, the shalom bobakarkalos, and he'd rather pay with land. The hanizak rotzedavka metaltalin, and now the nizak, the damaged party, is asking for metaltalin instead of land. Yad hamazik ala yona, that is the mazik has the power in his hands. And the situation is not similar to loans, where the power is in the hands of the collector of the loan, the creditor, which would have made the situation similar to the nizak.
Right.
But it's not the case. It's really actually the mazik, according to the Sma, is really he has the upper hand.
Right.
Veloka Beis Yosef, and this is not like the Beis Yosef
on the tour, right?
On the
right.
tour. The Shushan and the Shushan follows him, and he writes the e-boy anizak metalton sar chamazik litan lo.
Ayin Shah, not Kamashano. Exactly.
So he says that the e-boy that. If
the nizak, boy means rotzeh.
Boy rotzeh. Okay. So if the nizak wants metalton, then the mazik has to give it to him, which means that the nizak would have the upper hand.
That's correct. Okay. So, okay, good. Now, okay, direct. He tells you clearly. He quotes the party that he's going to speak on. He says these words are incorrect, and now he's going to tell us why.
So it says the Pshita Das Rambam Vehamachaber Ki'ir Shushan V'chein Das Atur B'shara Poskim, that the simple opinion, or he's going to explain the simple opinion of the Rambam, of the Shulchan Aruch, the Shushan, which are all similar to also to the Tur and all the poskim, all the rest of the poskim. So the Smaz by himself. Chen ikar uchamo she'evar, and the essential, the root of the matter is, as I will explain.
Right. In other words, it's clear. He puts everybody, as I said, in the camp of the Rambam. The Tur is the Rambam, and the Mechaber is the Rambam, and the Shushan who talks about the Mechaber is the Rambam. Everybody's really just talking about the Rambam. Okay, so you are totally wrong, and again, this is why I said you are totally wrong to put the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch in the camp of the Rabbeinu Tam and the Tosfos. He's not there, and that was your fatal error. Okay, and I'm going to prove it to you that this is the truth. Okay, and if you don't believe how I'm going to prove it to you, because I'm going to prove it to you in a little while, I'm going to bring you some texts to support my position of Rishonim. Okay, that's number 4.
Right. Okay,
Benemuke Yosef.
Benemuke Yosef. Reish Perek Hamucha Peros. Shkosov Lehadi.
Lehedya means explicitly.
So Muki Yosef in another section on Moicha Peros says explicitly Shemedivrei HaRambam Nira ben Zikin. So that we see from the Rambam we see in the Zikin from the words of the Rambam, Slay Karko Metaltalin, if the Mazik has land and movables, Kfinon Leiliten Lo Metaltalin Ad Sham, is that the other?
V'ayin Sham.
V'ayin Sham, So if the Mazik has land and movables, then they oblige him to give movables, to pay with movables.
They force him, actually. They force him to pay with movables.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's the magic of hyperlinks. Here is the Nemuki Yosef in front of us. Okay, on Hamocha Paris was a Gemara in Baba Basra, I believe. And here's what the Nemuki Yosef says, just to check out his quote. First, he brings the Ashkenazic opinion, and he says here, this is the Nemuki Yosef.
The Tosfos.
No,
it's the text of the Tosfos, no?
No, that's why it's confusing. The Nemuki Yosef is on the Rif. It looks like the Gemara. In the middle here we have the Rif, the second, and on the side,
the Rif. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. I should mention that. And on the side we have the Nemuki Yosef, who's a commentary on the Rif, and Rashi. Okay, abbreviated view Rashi. So just like the Gemara, they set up with 2 commentaries. They set up the Rif with 2 commentaries. Okay. Now, of course, there's many other people who speak on the Rif. But the people who put this together, I believe the widow Ram in Vilna, they decided these are the 2 great Rishonim to keep on the page. Okay, but that's what it is. So here, the Nemuki Yosef is quoted, and he says that this, by the way, is talking about Mechaktos. We eventually will get into these Gemaras a little more carefully, but remember, Mechaktos, the person got a cow and he thought it was for plowing, and it ended up to be a natchan, that it was a gora. Now a gora, you can't do much with that except not 3 times because they have to kill it, but if it's a wild animal, it can't be used for plowing, so all you can do is cut its throat and eat it, and that's always worth less than a working animal. So the buyer claims that it's a mekaktos because he was buying for plowing, and he got handed this cow that's a wild beast. So he comes back and he wants his money back. Okay, that's the context that this Rif is talking about. That's the Gemara it's talking about, but once again, as we learned in Rabbeinu Tam, there's a very, very strong relationship between all these cases where you're trying to extract money from someone. There's the Nizak is trying to get money back from the Mazik. The person who has been exploited, I don't know what you call it, ripped off, and they used to say in the old country, by the Lokea who's trying to get his money back. The Malva is trying to get his money back from the Lova. So there was a fourth one. What do we have? And let's see, we said Nezikin, Mechtos, Balchov. Oh, and the Poel, The Poel, he's trying to get his money from the boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all these things we said were called pirion. You're trying to get your money back. So there's a very strong relationship with all the different ones, but yet each relationship is slightly different. In the Zekin Meitav, he has to give if he wants to pay you back in land, in the workers are allowed to force the boss to pay him in kesef and go sell the stuff. You can't say, take a couple of bags that you've been making for yourself for your wages. No, you sell the bags and give me money. And then the middle cases, he can give. Depends. In the Balchov case, he has to give money. Okay, over land, and the same thing in Mechto. So we have all these cases of collection, and the relationships are slightly different, and the Torah is speaking about those relationships, okay? And we started here very innocently just talking about one relationship of Nezikin, but they are very closely related to these other dinim, and we have to know where the differences are and where the similarities are. So here the Nemuki Yosef says, when it comes to Nezikin, many people explain the matzi lamatan le a fil karka, not only metaltalin, but filu havale zuze. So even if he has money, we don't say he has to give money. We don't say he has to give metaltalin. We can say he can even give karka, which here you see, according to Reb Papa, karka is in the lower end, and the people who are learning Reb Papa as an equality say, well, there's no limitation on the mazik, okay? As long as he gives ubilvad, if he gives karka, it has to be edis, right? Aval divrei Rambam. Here's what the Shach just quoted. Aval divrei Rambam zalmira de kaven de isle metaltalin yehivle. No, the Rambam holds differently. That if he has metaltalin and karka, he has to give metaltalin. Okay, so there is a proof from a Rishon called the Nemuki Yosef that the Shach brings against all those people that say the Rambam are holding like the Ashkenaz opinion, and saying, no, my friends, you've got it wrong. The Rambam is clearly saying that if you have metaltalin karka, you must give metaltalin before karka, and that's the din. Okay, that's clear.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's going to bring, he has to bring other Rishonim that hold it because he doesn't want to say it's just the way I learn. So he says, I just showed you the Nemuki Yosef, and that's what he quoted, clearly states that's the Rambam's position. But he says, beyond that, I'm going to prove my point by saying, V'hachi, go ahead, continue. Number 5.
Mm-hmm. Number 5?
Yeah, this is V, Okay.
Yeah. Shat divrei harambam. This is, in fact, the simple meaning of the Rambam. Shekosov keshebezdin niskakim v'chulo govin mehametaltalim techila chulo. He writes that when the bezdin forces the mazik and so on.
No, when the bezdin is obligated.
When they are obligated, right?
And the Beiskin is obligated to collect the damages for the nizak, govin metaltalin nechila, right?
So they take that.
So that's the pashtus. Don't try to tell me that we're talking about a case where the mazik is saying, I want to give you a metaltalin, and the nizak says, I want to get karka. Forget it. Read the Rambam for what he says. Just like the Nemuki Yosef, he holds a chiddush that we collect from karka first. That's a simple meaning. I mean, if you read the text simply, that's what it says. Mashma, he says, from the simple reading.
Mashma. Mashma de ila de ve dina ramya ligvois techilam hamatalton.
The aleha the beidina, ramia ligvos mtechilas
Beidina.
mitakel.
Okay.
Right. It's
So
upon the
Rashi meaning
base
is that
din.
it's upon the base din, right?
Right. It's upon the base din is thrown to collect from metaltalin first. Right. And here I underline this in red.
Hadin kachu ve'enu tali b'ratzon hamazik onizak. And this is how this is the law, and it doesn't depend on the desire or the will of the mazik or the nizak. It's just an objective law.
Exactly. Now, this is a little different than we've been learning, really, okay, because everybody's been trying to push the Rambam, the Tur, and the Shulchan Aruch into this case of, one wants one and one wants the other. And really, the first one who gave us this idea really was the Beis Yosef himself on the Tur. But he says no. Let's talk pure Rambam. If you're talking pure Rambam, it's clear. The law is the Beis Din must collect from metaltalin. We ask the mazik, sir, what do you have? Money, metaltalin, karka? You can give money and metaltalin, but you can't give your karka. If you try to give your karka, we're not going to accept it because you have money or metaltalin. And that's the din. Forget about who wants what. Okay, so that's what he says clearly. Okay, and that's where really what the Nemuk Yosef said. He just said very simply the Beis Din. He did use the word nira, which is very interesting. If you caught that nira, it appears to him, but still that's what he said, that you collect from a metaltalin first. So he brings the Yosef, a Rishon, who brings Peshat in the Rambam that says you collect Talfan first. And he says, look, if you read the Rambam in the simple words without your drushes, then you'll see that that's clearly what he just says. And that's the din. Now he's going to bring another proof that the Rambam holds that you collect Metaltalin first from another law that the Rambam says right afterwards. Go ahead.
ועוד שכוסף שם הרמב"ם אחר כך במדין הש"ס. So moreover, the Rambam writes afterwards.
Right after the din of Nezikin.
Right. That it's a din. The Shas here refers to the Talmud? Is that what
the Talmud, it means, according to the Talmud,
if a man dies.
Now this man happens to be a mazik, by the way.
Right, he owes money and he dies and he leaves behind both movables and karka. Govin mehayutoimim mekarkaos. The Bezdin takes land from the orphans. The Chain hu b'Tur, and the law, same halachas found in the Tur. Ve'im ita the mistama licha le'lemazik tfeilit metaltalin. And if it were the case that it appears that it's more convenient for the mazik to give metaltalin, not only litome, the tam metaltalin, so it would have been more appropriate to give to the orphans, or to ask the orphans to pay from metaltalin.
Right, because the Beis Din, again, what you said, remember the Sma, you said the Beis Din is trying to figure out what the mazik would have given, right? And that's why they said metaltalin first. Well, if that's true, in the case where the is dead and the orphans are collecting, we always want to, now we have to say, well, what would the father have given? Oh, metaltalin. So then the din should be that we collect from the metaltalin. Yet we see it's not true. We collect from the karka first. So this idea that you have Sma, that Beis Din tries to figure out what would be best, it doesn't hold water when it comes to this case of the Yorshim. There, all of a sudden, the Rambam says we give karka. We don't give metaltalin. So he says, "V'ha'ech yigra koach hayisamim min hamazik atzmo." How could we make the orphans who have received all the power from the father, and whatever the father has, they're just standing in his place. How can we make them worse than the father himself? If the father himself, if he wasn't around, the Beis Din would collect from his metaltalin. So the orphans also is standing in the place of the father, we should also collect from metaltalin, not give them kark. So this idea that you have that the Beis Din somehow has tries to figure out what the mazik has is not only wrong. It's proven that it's incorrect because we don't do that with the Yisam. Now, of course, the people. Go ahead, please.
Can I ask you? Can you explain? I guess there's a big context here which I'm missing, but maybe you could just indicate it a little bit. This other halacha, why is it going against? I mean, obviously it has a different type of source. There's a different discussion behind it that obliges the payment to come from the karka, when you would think that first of all, that, as we say, that the deceased would have liked to pay with metaltalin, and on top of that we have the atonement. We want to give them the benefit of paying with a more convenient currency. So why is the halacha, and this is an objective halacha, it seems, not one that is looking at the preferences of the parties, and it's saying objectively the halacha is that you have to pay with karka if the man is dead. What's the source of that? Is there a different Talmudic source for that, or even a different pasuk behind that?
Yes, the answer is yes, and we're going to have to get into that. This point in the attack of the Shah, we're going to have to get into much more deeply. We're going to go, what is the source, and what does the source say, and is orphans, do they have a special law or not? He's presuming that the law of the orphan, it should be the law of the father. And if the father wasn't around, we would say give metaltalin. So if the orphans, who should have the same right to be able to give metaltalin, yet they don't. So he's trying to bring a proof that there's no such thing as the Beis Din trying to think what was the desire of the mazik. We have nothing to do with desires here. We have dinim. Dinim mean laws. Just like the Rambam says, you give metaltalin first. In the law, in the orphans, you give karka first. It has nothing to do with the desires of the party. That's what he wants to prove. Now, as far as the context or the background, let's say, we're going to have to research that. Okay, he doesn't go into it, but the people who are going to disagree with him are going to open up that background, and they'll say very simply, the case of orphans is different than the case of the orphans of the mazik have a special law. That's what they'll all be fighting, and they'll say, orphans have a special din. You can't, and that's why they end up getting karka. It has nothing to do with Ratzon here. They just have, we always take from their karka. For instance, one person, I'll just tell you just what one person says. He says, look, orphans never know what went on with the business of the father, right? They really don't know what the father was doing. So so they say that's why we normally try to say the best deal for them. However, they have one weakness, the orphans, in that there's a thing called shibud. Shibud means a lien on land. That is very unusual because if someone has land and he goes into debt and he puts that land up for collateral, then even if he sells it to another person, the creditor can go to the other person and get the land back, right? That's called a lien. That's why you always need to clear property before you buy it, because it may have something associated with it. So they're going to claim that the law of Yisomim, when they get land, anything that had a previous lien on it remains, but metaltalin never has a lien on it. Okay, so if someone borrowed money, so his car is not in hock, as they say. I mean, he could have written specifically in the contract it was, but you're not responsible if you buy a car from someone to do a clearance and make sure that there's no lien on the land. So they're going to say simply this case of Yisomim has nothing to do. It's a special case. Has nothing to do with our case. In Yisomim, there was the mazik, the father, had a debt, and that debt fell on the land, and that's why you pay back in land. There it has nothing to do with the desire of the parties. But normally, in a normal case, sure, the mazik can decide, and if he wasn't around, we would decide. So those are the people, that's a brief way that the people are going to unhook this proof against, or the steer against the SMA. Okay? But, okay. That's more or less context and where it's going. Okay, so if we analyze what the attack of the Sma was, okay, first he just made a statement that all these people, the Rambam, the Mechaber, and the Shushan, the Tur, and in other words, really the Mechaber, excuse me, let's go again. The Rambam and the Mechaber, like the Shushan, meaning that there's a power in the Nizak, and that's the Tur, and he brings a proof from what we call Kabbalah. I mean, he brings a proof. The Nmuk Yosef says it in the Rambam, and he says also, if you read the Rambam clearly, that's another proof that it's Yad Nizak Al Yona. That's what he's not. Excuse me, not Yad, that you take metaltalin first. That's the point. And he brings this other case of the Rambam and the Tur to knock out the Sma and to say that there's no such thing as trying to figure out what the person who's not around would do, and that does, or else we would have seen it in the case of Yosemite. Okay, so that's what he does to remove the position of the Sma. Okay, so I put over here. Here's the Sma. What he just did now was say that the Nemuki. He just said, first of all, not this, but this is the Shach. The Shach says that the Shulchan Aruch is really the Rambam, and the Rambam clearly in the Nemuki Yosef that you take metaltalin first, and that's the simple words, Pashut. That's the simple words of the Rambam, right? And he brings a raya, but both the Rambams will write the halakha of the Yisomim, and the Yisomim we see that we don't, when the mazik is not around, we don't decide that metaltalin is better. Adarabba, we say kach is better. According to you, we should have said metaltalin is better. Okay, so that's the work that he's just done now to fight the Sma. And he just made the Tur, Shar Poskim, the Mechaber is like the Ir Shushan. That was just a statement without any proof. Okay. But basically what he's doing here is he's putting the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch in the Rambam, and he's interpreting the Rambam to mean, Pashut, that you must give metaltalin before karka. Okay? Step number one. Clear?
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. So now he's going to go to this other side, and he's going to explain the mistake that the Sma and the Bach made, you see, because he's going to show us that it's true that there's an equality on the side of Rabbeinu Tam, but that has nothing to do with the Halach and the Shulchan Aruch or the Tur. So you guys are right about the Ashkenaz opinion, but that didn't come to the Halach over here. That's what he's going to do now. Let's read that inside. Okay. Uva Emes. Okay, you can forget about Gray. He's going to say Rabbeinu Tam says you can give either one. Okay.
Okay, so the truth of the matter is, Barosh Perek Kuf, or
Perek Kama to Baba Kama.
Perek Kama to Kama.
That's the rush that we did.
And Mordechai or Mordechai.
He's another Rishon. Yeah.
And all the other poskim learned that Das Rabbeinu Tam, Shadas Rabbeinu Tam, the Ein Tzarech Litem Lo Metaltalin.
The Ein Tzarech.
The Ein Tzarech. This is saying that they follow Rabbeinu Tam, right?
No, he's saying that the Rush, the Mordechai, and the other poskim hold that Rabbeinu Tam holds that if you have karka and metaltalin, you don't have to give metaltalin.
You don't have to. The Ein Tzarech Litem Metal. But he doesn't have to give.
Right. There's no advantage. There's no adifus. There's no mila. There's how do you say in English? There's no special quality of metaltalin over karka. No advantage. Okay.
Right. Not lo masha yirtzeh, but rather he can give whatever he likes. Or mekarke, or metaltalin, whether from his land or his movables.
Okay. This was a problem. Okay. Then why was this a problem to me? Because the Rush, okay, learning the Rif, says that all three things are equal. It's right. You don't have to give metaltalin over karka. That's clearly in the rush. Okay. The Mordechai, which I have a link to, I don't know if I want to get in it right now. Let's see if I can just link to it. Here's the Mordechai. Look what the Mordechai does. He's talking also on this case. He's talking about the case of in Baba Kama, Arba Avos. He has a different style. The Mordechai is a Rishon, and his style is to summarize the Gemara. Okay, so he starts with Abba Avos Nazikin, Pasak Harav Alfas, Karav Papa, Rav Hunbered Reb Yeshua, that what Pomile Metaltalin Meitavhu. That's the first thing he tells us, right? That Rav Alfas holds that Kol Mile Meitavhu, and that's halacha. V'taima midarach gabe baalim mitaplin binavela hashta I isle ledidei kama trefos yehivle v'boy v'hai. Okay, so the reason why this actually he puts the rush with Rav Alfas together. Okay, the rush, the Rif never said this. I'm sorry, this is the interpretation of the Rif on Rav Alfas. How do we know that there's no advantage of Kesev or metaltalin over? How do we know there's no advantage of karka over metaltalin? Okay, and the halacha is like Rav Papa, because in this Gemara that said that the Nizak gets the trefas, the Rush explained if there was some advantage of of karka over metaltalin, so then we would have a place to say this pasuk. In other words, without going through the whole learning, I just tried to do in 2 seconds, which I can't do. Remember, it said we learned from Nos and Lo in the pasuk, which is one of these lows that were ambivalent, that the Nizak gets the nevela. Okay, and then we subtract that money from the mazik's price, right? That's what we learned for Vamesielo. It said the dead cost goes to who? The Nizak. Okay, so Rev Kahana said we don't need the pasuk to tell us that the nevela goes to the Nizak, because the Nizak can give his own nevelas to the mazik, because we could say Yashiv, and certainly you can, if he gets a nevela from the Nizak, it'll just bounce back to him, right? So we don't need a pasuk to tell us that the mace goes to the Nizak, because that's obvious from Yashiv, right? So what does the pasuk come for? A new thing that the Baal is metaplan b'nevela halacha, but not that halacha. So the Rush said, you see, but if it was true that Kesev and karka was better than metaltalin, and that was your first preference, so we would need the pasuk, because if he had Kesev and if he had Kesev and Meitav, he couldn't give his nevela to the Nizak. Okay, all right. The whole raya here was we don't need Vamesia Lo to tell us that the Nizak gets the karka, because the mazik can give it to him as Yashiv. But if the mazik had karka or Kesev, then he couldn't give the nevela back. So then it would be a chiddush to say that the Nizak gets the nevela, right? So we would need the pasuk. So from there, the Rush learns that it's impossible that the halachas like Rev Huna, and there's no advantage of karka over metaltalin. There's no advantage of karka over metaltalin. Okay, that was Reb Alfas. That's the Rush explaining Reb Alfas, that they're all equal, and the halacha is like Reb Papa. Now, here's what the Mordechai says about Rabbeinu Tam. The Rabbeinu Tam pligi. Okay, the Rabbeinu Tam argues with what? And he says here in the note, look in Mocha Peros, but look what he says. V'pasach the gimel dinin chalukin le'inyan peron. Well, there's 3 different types of laws when it comes to paying back the aggrieved party. He says here, b'nezikin o kesev o meitav b'de'islay. Well, that's good. You either give him kesev or meitav when you have it. Aval b'de'islay, when you don't have kesev or meitav, then you're matzi lefroa afilu besubin karev huna dahacha. Right? Below Rav Yeshua. So here the Mordechai was a Rishon. Really, this is what Tosfos quoted Rabbeinu Tam also. No big difference. That in the Zikin we're holding like Rav Huna, that you have to give Kesef or Meitab, and if only when you don't have them, you give Metaltalin. So there's definitely no advantage of Metaltalin, that's sure. And it's worse than that not only is there no advantage of Metaltalin over Karka, it's actually the other way around. There's advantage of Karka over Metaltalin. Okay, so that's what the Mordechai says. Okay, and he goes through all the cases of the. Okay, so that's basically really how Tosfos explained. But what does he want here? The Rush and the Mordechai and the Sharp poskim say that Das Rabbeinu Tam is Ein Tzarech Liten Metaltalin. Well, what that must mean is they don't have to give Metaltalin over Karka, right? You with me? But here it doesn't make sense because he says Elanos and Mashiyirtza Omi Karka Omi Metaltale. Well, that's not true, Rabbeinu. This is what confused me in this line in the Shach. We just read the Mordechai. The Mordechai said if you have Karka or Metaltalin, Karka or Meitav, you must give it. And only when you don't have Karka and Meitav, when you don't have Kesef and Meitav Karka, that's the only time you give Metaltalin. And that was what we read in the Tosfos too, which was the Shita of Rabbeinu Tam over there, right? So I don't know why all of a sudden he first quotes the Mordechai, and he says the Mordechai says here that you can give Karka or Metaltalin. It's not true. If you have Karka or Metaltalin, you have to give Metaltalin over Karka. You with me?
Yeah, you have to give Karka or Metaltalin. Did he say Karka or Kesef? Wait, did I just forget something? He didn't. He just said you give Karka or Kesef over Metaltalin. No.
No. Let's begin.
Well, he says. Okay.
O Kesef o Meitav b'de Islay. When you have Kesef or Meitav, you must give it, right?
Right.
Only when you don't have Kesef and Meitav do you give Metaltalin a Filusubin.
Right.
So can I give?
So you give Kesef.
So you can't. How can you tell me you can give? How can you? What? Yeah, you can't. Once you have Karka, you can't give Metaltalin.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So it's either Kesef or Karka.
It's either Kesef or Karka, exactly. And if you don't have them, then you can give Metaltalin. So then why would he write over here that the Mordechai and the Shar Poskim say that Rabbeinu Tam says Ein Tzarech Liten Metaltalin? Well, Elanos and Mashiyirtza O Karka O Metaltalin.
Yeah, but is he, when the Mordechai is speaking there, is he speaking in the name of Rabbeinu Tam? Is it a parish of Rabbeinu Tam, or is it his own din? Maybe that's the difference.
Look what he says here. Aval Rabbeinu Tam argues with the Rif, right? Mm-hmm. And he's pasak that there's three of different, and he says, "When the Zik and Omein," he says it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that is ain't no move on. I mean, I don't know why. If the point was there's no advantage over Metaltalin over Karka, that I can understand. That's true. There's definitely no advantage of Metaltalin over Karka. It's even worse. If he would have left it at that, I would have said fine. But he says nosen lo mashiyirtze omi karke o Metaltalin. That's not true. If he has Karka, he can't give Metaltalin. So that's and also in the rush that we have, right? The rush is explained that the Rabbeinu Tam again he says Rabbeinu Tam holds like Rav Huna, that you give
Karka or Kesef first.
Yeah, exactly. But the halacha is not like that. He's just showing that the halacha is not like that. But not that you can give Karka or Metaltalin. So that confuses me here in the Shach. I mean, there's a point that has to be explained. He must explain that. Now here he says, "V'kach ketuv hanamuchi Yosef b'reish perach hamocha peres b'shem hamaforshim." So there, it's true. If we look back, remember that Namuchi Yosef that he quote the Rambam.
Yeah.
Okay, guess I could do it that way.
What is such a sloppy quotation? It seems like such a.
Yeah, but he's not a sloppy person, so that's what he's a very,
that's
very that's a very, very here he says here's the Kroya Sarah, who there's an extra pasuk called Yashiv, right? The Mikasiv Baal. Oh, 1 second. Am I in the right Namuchi Yosef? I just have to be careful here. V'kach b'reish per. Oh, it's a different Namuchi. Reish per hamocher peres. That's something else. I just made the wrong link. Here's that link to the Namuchi Yosef. Here's the link. Here we go. Remember, I showed that to you. In this Namuchi Yosef, he says that Uleinyan Nezikin ha'olu harbe minamaforshim demutzi lemiten le afiharka v'filu havale zuze. In other words, there's no advantage of metaltalin over karka. You can give either one. Okay. Now here he wants to say that this harbe maforshim is Rabbeinu Tam. Okay. He just says many of them maforshim. So he wants to say that's Rabbeinu Tam. The Matenu Tam test does not say that. Okay. So we have a little bit of a problem here, but the problem will be solved with the next thing that he says here. Not the next thing. Okay, let's go down here. So that's a problem here. That line is dramatic. And he says, so that's what he says. He says the Rush, the Mordechai, and the other, the Rush, the Mordechai, and the sharp poskim are mashma shadas Rabbeinu Tam ain't certainly ten metaltalin. Well, that's okay. Elanose and mashiyirtza omikarka metaltalin. V'chein ketuv Namuchi Yosef that you can give either one. B'shem hamaforshim. And he's very exact. He said he says that's Rabbeinu Tam, the name of the Forshim. Now here is going to be a surprise for us. Okay. V'chein katvu hatosfos in reish hamocha peros. Now here's going to be a surprise for us. Mocha peros was the problem of the mekachtos. Okay, so here we have a tosfos and mocha peros. Okay, and he says the following here. At the end of the Tosfos, he says the following words. Umargala bapume de Rabbeinu Tam. There's a pearl in the mouth of Rabbeinu Tam. Or it means, or Rabbeinu Tam was used to say it. It could be regil. That's my chaver said in another place. Umargale bapume de Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam said, this is what he would say all the time. That there's gimel dinan yesh b'bal chov is lezuze lo matzil salke le'el bezuze. With a bal chov, if you have money, you can't pay back with anything except money, right? V'i lesle, if you don't have money, of course, lo amrinan tarach v'aysezuze. We don't say, look, you creditor, go out and sell your subin and bring me back money. That you don't say. But if you do have money, you have to pay with money. That was Baal Chov, right? He says in Nezikin. Aval v'nezikin afilu isle zuze. In Nezikin, even if you have money, matzi l'saluke b'ma de boy. you're able to rid yourself of your debt with whatever you want. Why? To call mile meitavhu, because all things, all movables are metalta, are good. Kid Rav Papa v'Rav Huna b'Rei Yeshua, like Rav Papa and Rav Huna b'Rei Yeshua. So this Tosfos, quoting an oral record of what Rabbeinu Tam says, that the halacha is like Rav Papa and Rav Huna b'Rei Yeshua, and you can give what you want.
Okay.
In Tosfos on Daf Tes with Rav Huna, it said that Rabbeinu Tam Kasav b'Sefer HaYoshar. When it came to writing the book Sefer HaYoshar, he wrote that we hold like Rav Huna. But when
the report would be different from what he actually wrote.
That's the problem here.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they're saying. They're saying he used to say orally that we really hold like proper Rebbe Shuna. When he came to write the book, he switched his tune to Rav Huna. Oh boy! So we have a problem now. A very, very serious problem here.
Since the Tosfos are many people, do we have to assume that the Tosfos is consistent? The opinion throughout the Tosfos? It's not Rashi, right?
No, it's not Rashi. It's many different people. We have this is called Tosfos Shalano. There's a few different compilations of Tosfos, but you would presume that Rabbeinu Tam was consistent. If they were just saying their own opinion, that's one thing. You'll say this is one Bali to another Bali, but they're reporting Rabbeinu Tam. Elamai, they are making a distinction from what he said and what he wrote. So now we have a little bit of a problem now. So the Shach now is quoting, this is the Shach is quoting this Tosfos that brings this version of Rabbeinu Tam, that the halacha is like Rav Papa, and that you can give what you want. Okay, what about our Gemara and Tes with Rav Huna and the Gemara over there? So don't know. I mean, so he's saying this is more authoritative than the other one.
Right.
Okay, we're in a fix over here, right? But we have to know the facts. The facts are that he says, I understand that the Tosfos on Tes quoted Rabbeinu Tam one way, but there's another way to understand Rabbeinu Tam, and that's that things are equal. So this Rabbeinu Tam, here he can say in this Rabbeinu Tam, that's in Mocher Paris, which is Mechektas. He can say, give what you want. The Mordechai that we have in front of us says, Rabbeinu Tam says, no, you have to give karka or kesef first, and then only metaltalin. And then he says, also the Tosfos in Reish Baba Kama. That's not good either. It's in Tosfos Reish Baba Kama, if he's talking about, and that's the only talking about our Tosfos, there he also says the halacha is like Rav Huna, and you can only give. Oh, yeah. Again, if it was, that's why I put a question mark there. Yeah, that's our Tosfos that says Tam holds like Rav Huna. Okay, so if he was talking about the Tosfos, you could say the Tosfos holds like the Rif and everything is equal, but you can't tell me that Rabbeinu Tam. Okay, but we have a problem with Rabbeinu Tam now. The Tosfos on our page says in Sefer Yosha he holds like Rav Huna, and orally he held like Rav Papa. So there is a problem, and I don't know why he said it in the Mordechai also. The Mordechai that we have in front of us is quoting Tes, which means that you have to give the karka over metaltalin. And if he just would have said that there's no preference of metaltalin over karka, then everything would work out fine, right? If he just wants to prove that, unlike the Rambam, there's no preference of metaltalin over karka, right? Then I would have had nothing to say here, because that's fine. Not only is there no preference of metaltalin over karka, according to Rabbeinu Tam, it's worse. Okay. But he doesn't say that. He says that this is Rabbeinu Tam Shita. So he has one Rabbeinu Tam in in Amocha Paros, where Rabbeinu Tam does like a Rav Papa that everything is equal, that he does have. But to put our Tosfos in there, which just doesn't make sense in the name of Rabbeinu Tam. Okay? Now, that's what he says. That's a problem. So we have to know that it's a problem. And these people are very precise, so it's very unusual that he would say such things. We have to explain this, what's going on. Now, he also quotes another Tosfos in Perek HaPara, Daf Mem Vav, Amud Beis, B'Shem Rabbeinu Tam. Okay, we'll look at that in a second. He says, Mash Misham, the Rabbeinu Tam Meforish, the Hor de Kamrinan B'Shas, B'Babakam, Daf Es, Rav Huna Omer O Kesev Omeitav, Dahainu Harashus Biado Liten Eze Shiyirtze. Look what he says here. And we'll look inside over there. He says, the Rabbeinu Tam is Meforish over there. There's Rabbeinu Tam again. That which we said in Rav Huna on Peites, when he said, "O Kesef or Meitav," means that you can give Kesef or Meitav equally. Okay?
But not Metalton.
Yeah, but so what is he?
Rishus Biyadu refers just to Kesef or Meitav.
Exactly. But that's not our point. We have to prove that you can give equally Metaltalin, and we have to show that you can give equally Kesef and Metaltalin. That's the point we're trying to prove against the Rambam. So let's see what he says over here. Magic of a click here. He says, Ve'ein nirul Rabbeinu Tam. Okay, one second. Va'omer Rabbeinu Tam. Here's another quote of Rabbeinu Tam. This says just Omer Rabbeinu Tam. It doesn't say Ragil Bapume. It doesn't say he wrote it in Shei Sefer Yoshar. It says Va'omer Rabbeinu Tam Gimel Dinim LeBalchov LeNazikin ULeSacher. Right? The Balchov Isle Zuze Lo Matzi L'Slik B'Shar Milei K'Deparashti. The Leisle Zuze Lo Matzi Omele Zil Tapuzav and Vaise Zuze. Right? When Balchov, you have to pay with Kesef if you have it, and if you don't have it, you can't tell the borrower, you go out and sell yourself and bring me Kesef. Okay, Ba'Kosev. Okay, when we said Mare de Rishusech Periafre, when someone owes you money, you better take anything he can give you. Okay, now here's Nazikin. V'Nazikin, Afilu Isle Zuze, Matzi L'Saluke Ba'ara. Even if he has Zuze, he can give Ara. The Rav Huna, the Omer Beperakama, O Kesev, O Meita. Well, that's true, correct? Right? In other words, even if you have money, you can give land according to Rav Huna. That's fine.
Matzi l'saluk, is this a statement of allowance, or when it says Matzi l'saluk b'ara, does that mean that he's allowed to give ara, or he must?
No, he's allowed. He's allowed. He can give what he wants. He can give Kesef or he can give ara. No preference. Okay. Right? You can give Kesef or you can give Ara. Now that's true. Rav Huna says, O Kesef or Meitav, correct? Now look what he adds. Look what he adds. Ula Rav Papa, Rav Huna Bereda Rav Yeshua, Kol Mile Meitavhu. What does that mean? So he's not giving it, this is not not giving up psak here then, right? He's just saying what, that they're both options? You can follow either Rav Huna or Rav Papa? Very strange what's going on, right? No, you should not. You should be confused. You should be confused. What's going on here? Yeah. What is going on here? This is a Tosfos, right? This is a Tosfos quoting Rabbeinu Tam. Maybe Rabbeinu Tam gave 3 different classes. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe before he wrote, he said one thing. After he wrote it in the book, another thing. I don't know. But at least forget about the contradiction of the 3 different Rabbeinu Tams. What is he saying here? Well, he's leaving both options open, right? He's saying you can either follow Rav Huna or Rav Papa. But I think he's putting them together. Because he's telling us the din here.
How?
He's saying there's 3 dinim. Now he's telling you a pasak halacha here. Okay?
Mhm.
Pasak here. He's not just trying to say, well, Rav Huna holds this and Rav Papa holds this. He's giving a halacha. He's saying that Rav Huna will tell you you can pick kesef or meitav, and of course, if you don't have them, you would give metaltalin. But Rav Papa says not only can you choose kesef or meitav, you can also choose metaltalin.
Mhm. As if it's an extension of Rav Huna.
Exactly. Well, it's an argument, Rav Huna.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's not an argument that it's an extension in the sense of it's an additional allowance. Rav Huna allows either kesef or meitav, and Rav Papa adds to that allowance the allowance of metaltalin.
Exactly.
So he's reading it as one single psak. Both of them is one psak.
Right. Right.
Okay, so then fine. Then you can have both. Why not? He wrote one thing and he said another. So he allowed everything.
But look how this is working. This is very, very interesting here how this is working, because we, up to this point, were separating Rav Huna from Rav Papa completely. They're 2 different worlds.
Yeah.
Okay. Now here we have a Tosfos that Rabbeinu Tam is being quoted as putting them together. Okay. Yeah. Now this is very unusual. So now the key to this, to the understanding here, is to think about kesef. Did Rav Papa and Rav Huna bar Rav Yeshua talk about kesef? They didn't. Remember, they never spoke about kesef.
Not explicitly.
Right? Never explicitly. It was always in the background somewhere. They were only talking about metaltalin and
also,
yeah, go ahead.
Liquidity. Liquidity was the issue, so that's why kesef was always in the background.
Exactly.
The whole point, in a way, the whole point was kesef. In a way, is the fact that they could liquefy their assets and then just get kesef right away, even though he doesn't say it by name. That's right. So we read that the word kesef was really contained in the word mizdavin.
Exactly. That's how we understood, right? Exactly.
So, right.
It doesn't have to be mentioned because that is the standard. That's what we all want to do, is get kesef into the hands of the nizak, right? So the only problem was between metaltalin and karka, whether we can use them or not. Right?
Right.
So now, what did Rav Huna do? Rav Huna explicitly spoke about kesef.
Mm-hmm.
Explicitly. And he told us kesef is equal to ara, is equal to meitav, correct? Now, Rav Papa and Rav Huna bar Rav Yeshua never told us in the end if kesef was equal to meitav. It depends how you read them, right? Is there 3 different levels? Kesef on top, metaltalin second, top is the worst, but it's still okay? Or are they all 3 equal? Or is kesef and metaltalin equal and meitav still on the bottom? How does it work? So we don't really know what the position of Rav Papa and Rav Huna is explicitly. It depends upon how we're going to understand them. Correct?
Yeah.
So what Rav Huna says is that kesef is equal to ara. That's what he says. But metaltalin is not.
So I guess we can make the case. This is really like this is hermeneutics here. The art of interpretation. We're saying that they could be the same opinion. It's just that one of them makes explicit what the other one keeps implicit.
Right.
So there's no disagreement. It's just 2 different perspectives on what you want to make explicit or implicit.
Okay. Now that we have to talk about that. Why? Because it's not that simple, because there's a svara behind Rav Huna. When he puts metaltalin on the bottom, that's saying something about the relationship of kesef to metaltalin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not so simple to run these two things together,
Yeah.
because the svara we said was that Kesef and Meitav are equal, and all of a sudden he doesn't hold a svara that in mizdaven lahach and mizdaven misacheres. If that was true, then he would have Kesef equal to metaltalin. So he doesn't hold that svara. He holds the svara that, like, for instance, we tried to say that Meitav is so desirable, and Kesef is as desirable as Meitav, but junk like Subin, come on, no one wants that junk. So you can only give it when not. And Rav Papa holds just the opposite. So it's very, very. I mean, how can we put these two people together? Because if you just read it quickly,
This one person. How do we put Rabbeinu Tam together?
yeah, how are we putting Rabbeinu Tam together? It seems like these are two disparate svaras, and he's putting them together. He's saying when it comes to the choice of Kesef and Meitav, so they're equal. And Rav Papa, so I can understand what I wanted to say. And again, we have to talk this out. It's not so simple. Since Rav Papa did not tell us the relationship of Kesef, Shavik Kesef and Meitav explicitly, so he's using Rav Huna to say that Kesef and Ara are equivalents. And they're only arguing about the position of metaltalin. But as far as Kesef and Meitav, they would both agree. And Rav Papa would.
Is it possible?
Yeah. Okay.
Just as a possibility, I don't know, because I mean, I've often heard it said that a poisek, you can't make a psak for everybody. There's certain situations where you have to be mako. I mean, you can't, and if somebody hears about the psak, they say, "Oh my gosh, he said that." With me, he was so chumerdik, and with you, he's mako. So, I'm wondering, is it enough to say that Rabbeinu Tam, when he wrote his book, he was machmir, he gave the halacha as it is, but that the pearl in his mouth was something that came out every once in a while when he wanted to be mako, or he had to be mako. Because why do I say mekel? Because really the whole point here is to make an allowance from the Talmud. They say, look, the halacha, the bottom line is you've got to pay kesef or meitav. Those are the best commodities. But there are situations in which it's difficult for the mazik to pay. So, word of mouth is that Rabbeinu Tam every once in a while would psak, lakula. Can we say that, or is that?
I don't think we could say it in Rabbeinu Tam. Because when that usually happens, they usually talk about a maisa that happened, that he was makel, the woman was whatever, a poor woman, and she had the treif chicken, so he took a makel opinion. That's nice when, they talk about it. They say, they tell you a situation. But here, it's, this is a very, very difficult, and we would have to look what people say over here. This is very, very difficult to understand.
Yeah.
Now, just one second. Yeah. So, but it's a difficult to understand what he wants here. Let me just think 1 second. Okay, we have to think about this, because the words of Rav Huna is O Kesef O Meitav. And now, according to Rav Papa, the definition of Meitav also includes metaltalin. So if they're just arguing what Meitav is, right? In other words, Kesef is always preferable, let's say, even according to Rav Huna, right? Now the only question is what's called Meitav. So Rav Huna says Meitav is only Meitav Haaretz, and Rav Papa says no, Meitav is even Metaltalin. Okay, so according to Rav Huna, you can give Kesef or Meitav. Now.
Oh, I see. Are you saying that Rav Papa is just defining what the word Meitav includes?
Exactly. He defines Meitav differently than Rav Huna.
So it's not that he's, well...
He is arguing with Rav Huna.
I'm
you
saying,
say so.
No, I'm saying according to, is it possible that Rabbeinu Tam's reading of it here, because he's collapsing the two of them together. So is he saying, it's like saying this, he's saying, okay, I'm putting words in his mouth here, okay? He'd say like this, Rav Huna says, you can pay with cash or with good things. And Rav Papa says that everything is called a good thing. So therefore the two opinions go together because he's saying, in other words, you can pay with kesef or with anything that is called a good thing. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That Meitav here then functions in the presentation at least of Rabbeinu Tam. Meitav functions as X in the first line. It functions as a variable, a mathematical variable. You can pay with kesef or with X. Well, what does that mean? What is X? Well, Rav Papa will explain to us what X is. X is anything that is good.
So now, very good, excellent. So now, except the second statement of Rav Nachman. Because Rav Nachman says to Rav Huna, okay, well, what do you do with Yashiv?
He says that's Rav Huna, right. In other words, Yashiv is not included in Meitav. Not included right. in the variable.
It's not Yashiv
really refers, Yashiv goes together with Kesef, not with Meitav.
But according to Reb Papa, Meitav was Yashiv, right? The word Meitav meant metaltal.
That's according to Reb Papa.
Exactly.
But you're saying according.
But now Reb Nachman asked Reb Huna,
right,
what do you do with Yashiv?
Right. What I'm saying is
he should have said that's Meitav also. Reb Huna should have said, well, that's Meitav also.
Right. Yeah. Right, so he excludes, right, so by answering, so he says Yashiv really is, right, that means Subin, that's going to be the exclusion. In other words, that's going to be the diabet. That's, if you don't have Kesef for Meitav, then you go ahead and pay with Subin, with Yashiv. Right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yashiv, yeah, so then how do you include, yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah. I don't know. How does it work? It doesn't make sense.
Well, I can make it make sense. If we don't learn like Rashi. Okay, again, we have to talk this out. If we don't learn like Rashi, because Rev Nachman said, hey, what do you do with Yashiv? So Rav Huna said, B'delese, right? You said, oh, B'delese Kesev and Meitav, like Rashi, right? What happens if he meant B'delese Kesev?
But B'delese Kesev, right? Then he can pay
Meitav Aretz or Meitav Subin. But that's only if he doesn't have Kesef. If he has Kesef, he has to pay Kesef.
How does that help, though? Because if you say, okay,
oh, that's terrible. What I just did is I put Reb Papa into Reb Huna, and they're only arguing about Kesef now. And they may not even be arguing about that either. Wow. Wow. Okay, let's go over that just for fun. I mean, I don't know if this is what is behind, because he has a whole different reading of Rav Huna here. But let's play this game out a little. I mean, a quote unquote game. Okay, Rav Huna says, "Oh, kesav u'meitav," right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Rav Nachman says, "Wait a minute. Metaltalin is also meitav, like Rav Papa said, right?"
Yeah.
So how come you didn't mention metaltalin? That's also meitav.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he says that's when, because I didn't mention metaltalin, because you can only give it when you don't have kesef. In other words, between kesef and metaltalin, kesef is greater than metaltalin. Between metaltalin and karka, they're equal. That's unbelievable.
Oh, metaltalin and karka are equal?
Yeah, because remember what Reb Papa said, that metaltalin you can sell anywhere, right? And karka has...
This is not Rav Huna here.
I'm putting Rav Huna and Reb Papa together. That I don't know if anyone put it together this way, but I'm putting it together. We're just having some exploratory surgery. Exploratory surgery here. All right.
Okay. But he's saying kesef o meitav, right?
Okay. Let's say meitav. Let's say meitav means land. Okay. Let's say it does mean meitav karka. So he says, or you have to give kesef or meitav karka, and those two are equal.
Okay.
If you have kesef, you can give kesef or meitav karka.
Right.
So Rahman says, but you didn't talk about yashiv. You didn't talk about metaltalin. So I say you can only give metaltalin when you don't have kesef. In other words, if you have kesef and meitav karka, you can give either one. But if you have metaltalin and kesef, then you must give kesef before the metaltalin.
And if you have metaltalin and karka?
And if you have metaltalin and karka, you can probably give them equally.
Also, only... I see what you're doing. You know, you're saying, you know why it makes sense, because really Reb Nachman is hard, he's focusing on kesef. The question, what I'm saying is that the question pertains immediately to kesef because the pasuk puts them together.
Right.
Right. Kesef and yashiv go together. Yashiv does not go together in the pasuk with meitav.
Right.
So he's saying, how does yashiv fit in? So he's saying, okay, so it fits in after kesef, but not necessarily after meitav. You could give metaltalin or meitav equally. There's something logical about it, but also irritating about it.
Well, it's irritating because no one says it. But anyway, I'm just trying to make. I'm trying to make sense of how could Rabbeinu Tam put these two things together when we've been putting them separate all the time. That was my only question. What are these two things? This is like apples and oranges, right?
Yeah.
So I'm playing with it. Anyway, we're going to play more with this. This is not so. What I did was what no one said. You're going to see now how the Shach is going to read this Rav Huna. Okay. Now I don't know if, but let's just read what he has to say. Anyway, this is what he quotes. This is what Rabbeinu Tam says, and then it will come out if the way I'm reading is no machlokas between Reb Papa and Rav Huna. Right. You see?
Right.
And that would be pretty good because that was one of the positions of the Rush. But the Rush said just what the Rush did was take Rav Huna and put it into Reb Papa. He says Reb Papa also said Kesef and Meitav, and only if you don't have them, use metaltalin. And his only problem was how come when you have to give land, you have to give the best, and b'di'evid, when you give metaltalin, you have to give the worst. That's how the Rush did. He imported Rev Huna into the Shita of Reb Papa and said that they were the same, and that's the way we got rid of the Basroi. Okay? You with me on that?
Mhm.
But I did just the opposite. I took Reb Papa and I imported it to Rev Huna. Right? So, okay. We're free to think, you know. Whether it's true or not is another story, but we're free to think. That's the beauty of Torah. Okay.
Well, but let me ask you this: if you're importing Rav Papa just explain to me how you're reading Rav Papa then, because he is an equalizer. He equalizes all three, right?
Not necessarily. He doesn't talk about Kesef. He doesn't talk about the relationship of Kesef and Yashiv. He doesn't talk about the relationship.
So what is he saying with Kol Milametahu? He's not including Kesef in there?
Well, he's talking about...
Actually, it's possible.
Well, it's not really possible. Well, it's not so good because he's talking about the relationship of Metaltalin and Karka. So they're okay, and they could be equal. And he's saying they could be equal. What about Kesef?
That's exactly what you're saying of.
Exactly.
No, which is exactly what you're saying of Rav Huna.
Exactly.
It may be
Except,
I don't know.
Where does he? I don't know what he holds in Kesef. Maybe he holds in Kesef exactly what Rav Huna held. That Kesef is equal to Meitav. Okay. Anyway, that was interesting. Whether it holds water, we would have to really talk about it because it may be that it doesn't. I mean, you know. Okay. Now let's see what the Shach learns. I mean, this is what I did was unusual, but he's going to also do something unusual. But that's why he's written these books and I'm not. So anyway, let's go back over what he said. He says the truth is, okay, I'm telling you the Rambam says that metaltalin is a din that you have to give it before karka. That's what I'm telling you the Rambam is. I bring my sources. And in truth, the Rabbeinu Tam does not hold this. Rabbeinu Tam that holds that there's no advantage of metaltalin over karka. Okay? And he brings sources, okay? The Rush, the Mordechai, and the Sharp Poskim, they say Rabbeinu Tam says you can give either or, you see, makarka or metaltalin. You see, now the way I just learned you could, right? But that's not what we learned simply according to Rashi in Rav Huna, right? And according to what the Tosfos said over there, when in quoting Rav Huna, he said you can give Kesef or Meitav Karka, and only if you don't have both can you give metaltalin. So he's learning like Rashi over there. The Tosfos is learning Rabbeinu Tam like we learned classically, which means that when you don't have Kesef or Meitav Karka, that's the only time you can give metaltalin. Okay, that's how the Tosfos learned over there. Okay, but here the Tosfos are learning Rabbeinu Tam. No, that was
the Tosfos that we just looked at.
No, not the Tosfos we just looked at now. There's you see the problem is three different Tosfoses. That's the problem.
Right.
So let's put a little seder in this. In Daf Tes, when Rebbe Huna talks, Tosfos brings Shitas Rabbeinu Tam from Sefer Yashar. Okay,
which follows Rav Huna.
Follows Rav Huna and says that you karka and meitav, and only if you don't have both do you give metaltalin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then we have a Tosfos in Hamoche Paris. Okay, where all of a sudden Tosfos brings Rabbeinu Tam that says the halacha is like Rav Papa, that them all equally.
Okay.
Then. This is Rosh Perkers where we were. That's Tes. That's Rabbeinu Tam Sefer. Then there's this third Tosfos that makes a new combination that puts somehow in the same breath Rav Huna that says you can give karka or Kesef, and then says, and according to Rav Papa, you can also give metaltalin because that's meitav too. Okay, so we played with that a little, but he makes he smashes the two things together. Okay, how, what, when. We started talking a lot about it. Okay, but look at it. He says here, Umash Misham, Shirabenu Tam Maforish, Tahor de Kamrina Bashas Babakama Tesvav. Now it's mashma that in the Tosfos we just read. Let's read the Shach's explanation of that. It's mashma from the Tosfos we just read that Rabbeinu Tam is Maforish. That we said in Daf Tes, Rav Huna o Kesev o Meitav, Hainu Sharishus Biado Litan Eza Shiyirtza. When we said Kesev or Meitav, he can give what he wants. Well, that's true. I don't know why. Okay, you can give what you want. Kesev or Meitav. But what about Metaltalin, which is our whole point? How come you're not talking about that? That's what's confusing me about the Shach. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So it's very... Yeah, go ahead.
This is just, okay, I'll just throw this out. It seems like the conclusion of it, the way it's all brought together in that very last line. Seems that he wants to take out of it, what he wants to take out, look, the problematic thing here is the Baba Kama text, right, and how Rav Huna fits into this, and Rabbeinu Tam's reading of Rav Huna. So the last line seems to say that the issue in all of these texts for Rabbeinu Tam is that of Rishus. So that when he comes to reading O Kesef or Meitav, the key words there are neither Kesef or Meitav, but the key word there is O.
Correct. No, that's 100% correct. I mean, I agree with you. That's what he wants. It's an O. The Mazik's Yad is Yona. He decides.
Right.
Or the din is, forget about Mazik Yona. The din is, he decides what he wants to give. Kesef, Meitav, and maybe even, according to Reb Papa, if we put them together somehow, even Metaltalin too. He can give all three. Okay?
The only thing that, I mean, it's a nice reading. The only thing it does leave out, though, is Reb Nachman's retort.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't fit in so nicely. Okay. He has one Tosfos that if Rabbeinu Tam's holding like Reb Papa, which he has one Tosfos in Perek HaMocher which says it, that's fine. I have no problems with that. That's Reb Papa. Everything's equal. But if somehow Rev Huna is a proof to him, all Rev Huna is a proof is that Kesef is equal to Meitav. In other words, Rishus Biyado with Kesef and Meitav. But the position of Metaltalin is less over there, L'chara, in the Tes. Right? So that's a little bit of a problem. We have to, again, maybe someone will open our eyes. Maybe we can think about something. We start playing a little, but that is a problem in understanding the Shach.
Can I ask you, is it possible, just as a possible reading of this, that he's saying that the psak, the final psak, is Rav Papa? That's a given. So given that the final psak is Rav Papa and that everything is equal, he's surgically selecting this one line, O Kesef U'Meitav, and he's saying, look, since I'm not worried about the psak of Rav Huna, I don't even have to take Rav Nachman's question into consideration. I'm just going to take Rav Huna's initial statement, which is a statement of Rishus, and I'm going to leave out where he ends up, because it's not my concern anyway where he ends up. I'm holding with Rav Papa anyway. So
maybe I would add a little something to what you're saying. We don't know what Papa holds as far as is there a hierarchy or not. Okay? And maybe from Rav Huna, somehow we can figure out that we always hold that there is no hierarchy. Just like there's no hierarchy in Kesef and Meitav, there's no hierarchy with Kesef and to those people that say that Kesef, that Metaltalin is Meitav, so there's also no hierarchy. I don't know. Again, that's what I call sloppy thinking. You know what I mean?
But
you know what I mean? It's
somehow the thing to make that move, you have to leave out Reb Nachman. Somehow you have to exclude him.
Yeah, but Reb Nachman is there. I mean, what are you going to do?
No, so this is what I'm saying. Like I'm suggesting there's a way to read it in a way that leaves out Reb Nachman in a clean way.
How? How are you going to have Nachman?
Which is to say that what is the interest here in Rav Huna's position? I'm not interested in his psak. I'm interested in his svar. So how he paskins is not, irrelevant to me, right? The psak is only interesting when you bring in Reb Nachman because he problematizes his position. Says, oh, you want a psak? Fine, then we'll put metaltalin afterwards. We'll put it in the lowest position. But before Reb Nachman comes along, the svara, O Kesav V'Meitav, is a very interesting svara. He's saying, look, you can go either way. It's a reshus b'yadcha. So Rabbeinu Tam is focusing only on that element of that svara. That he's chopping off the bottom part of the argument. He's chopping off the conclusion. And I'm saying that he's at liberty to do so. This is my point. He's at liberty to do so because his psak is Rav Papa. So he says, I'm not trying to learn a psak from Rav Huna. That's not my interest in him. Is a final psak. That my psak is with Rav Papa, but I am interested in Rav Huna's reasoning. And therefore, I'm interested in his first statement. That alone is interesting to me.
Yeah, but how do you move? But how do you move from the world of Rav Huna, which is a reshus, to the world of Rav Papa? How do you make that move? Just because he said it, but he has a different world view. You know, I mean,
Well, Rav Papa. Well, see this. Okay, because for Rav Papa, the reshus becomes the psak. See, I think the whole point here is that Rav Huna would not end up with reshus as his final psak. He would say, wait a minute, yes, there is reshus, there's kesav v'meitav, but hey, don't start pushing metaltalin in there through the back door just because I gave you reshus. There's not that much reshus. Whereas Rav Papa, his psak is at the reshus' maximum. That's his whole psak. And so the psak that the Rabbeinu Tam is going with is that one, is Rav Papa. But maybe somehow, and I don't know how, he's saying that Rav Huna is participating in that psak, at least for the first part of his thinking.
So let me go along your line over here and make a little bit of a modification. Maybe it'll help us in the thinking. Let's say Rav Papa says all three things are equal. Okay? And all Rav Huna is doing is dropping metaltalin down. In other words, the fight of Rav Huna in the end, in other words, what he really holds, because he really holds what Rav Nachman tells him. I mean, you know, it's not like he just thought about it when Rav Nachman asked him the kasha. He really held the maskana. He really said that. He only talked about Kesav and Meitav, but the reason why he left that Yosef, because he knew it was only b'diavad, that you don't have reshus to give that lechatchila. He didn't just come up with that idea after Rav Nachman asked him a kasha. That's what he meant. All along. But so maybe, whereas Rav Papa said all three things are equal, Rav Huna is arguing with Rav Papa, and he's saying, you're right about Kesef and Meitav. Those are equal. But I disagree with you when it comes to metaltalin. I think it's less.
Yeah. But Rabbeinu Tam doesn't have to follow that psak.
No, not the Pesach, but really it's the Shach. All the Shach wants to get at is that Rav Huna and Rav Papa are only arguing about the position of metaltalin, but as far as reshus, as far as reshus, they really agreed. In other words, they both agreed that the mazik can decide what to give. The only question is, how far does his reshus go? So Rav Papa says it goes completely, and Rav Huna says no, it goes only up to Kesav and Meitav. Right. But they both agree that the reshus is in the hands of the mazik. The only thing that they disagree is that the mazik can't give metaltalin, and that's not.
They disagree on the extent of the reshus.
The extent of the reshus.
Yeah. It makes sense also because historically, right? If Rav Huna is coming first, then Rav Papa is extending as the Basra. He's extending the reshus.
Yeah, and then we have a problem. Well, that's the problem of how he can fight Huna. That's another problem. But that's okay. The Basra can in this case. We said they can fight with Rav Huna. Okay.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah.
Please.
What I mean is that Rav Huna, as the first voice historically, he's the one who sets up a reshus question altogether between Kesav and Meitav, because that's what the question first arises. Okay, how do I pay? So he says, O Kesav, O Meitav, and then the Basra comes along. Rav Papa says, I'm going to add an O to that. You can also give metaltalin, but at least he doesn't open up the question of reshus. It's Rav Huna who's credited with that in a sense. So I mean, I don't know if that's important. Maybe it's not important.
Well, in the sense of the starting point. The starting point was the
Yeah.
mazik can do what he wants to do, and
Yeah.
Rev Huna said not completely,
Right.
and Rev Papa said sure completely, even with metaltalin. But you know, in other words, as we said before, it's only the extent of there was never a question in Rabbeinu Tam's mind that the Nizak had any power. Really, everything was in the hands of the mazik. Now the question is, why did Reb Huna all of a sudden knock out the reshus of the mazik and say only when you don't have the kesev and the meitav you give metaltalin? Why did he all of a sudden stop when it came to metaltalin and say that you can't give?
Right. That's a limit. It's a limitation on the
Right. So because he says that's not called meitav. I mean, simply, as we've been learning normally without all these fancy, you know, lace. Because he says that's not called meitav. I disagree. It's not called meitav.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
So that's why he can't.
That actually, that makes sense also with the way that we're reading the Rambam or the Shach's reading of the Rambam, which is that the Rambam stands outside of the question of Rishus altogether. It's not a question of Rishus. This is what has to be done. So this would be this kind, which is like an objective limitation. So this would be an objective limitation that Rav Huna introduces. He says, yes, that insofar as we're talking about Rishus, Kesef or Meitav, but that's subjectively. Objectively, there's a limitation on that. And it's not, why am I saying that? The objective limitation is not meant to reintroduce the Rishus of the Nizak over and against that of the Mazik, because then we fall back into the question of, you know, we have this fight between whose Rishus is greater, the Mazik or the Nizak. He's just saying, insofar as there is Rishus, it belongs to the Mazik, and there's a limit to it, an objective limit, which has nothing to do with the Nizak.
Yeah, it just happened to be what's called meitav.
Right, right.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing to do with it. It's just that this stuff is junk, so you can't give it. It's not equal to kesef or meitav. So that's why you can't give it. But not because we're limiting your reshus to give because of the nizak or some other reason. You know, just because that's not called meitav. That's all. But reshus was never a question. Of course, you can give either one. And Reb Papa says all three, and Reb Huna says, well, that's not called meitav, so you can't give it. But there's nothing to do with taking away your power, just not called meitav. Interesting. Okay, so anyway, that's how he wants to explain Rabbeinu Tam. Yes, Rabbeinu Tam is a question of reshus. Okay, and then whether there's a limitation or not on the reshus. Okay, so if that's true, so there's no reason why. Well, that means that we don't have to get into the Ratzah, but what about our main problem of giving an advantage of metaltalin to Karka? Well, at least we could say it has nothing to do with who has the upper hand. It's just a question of a din, what's called meitav. Okay? Now, but it has nothing to do with upper hands and non-upper hands. It's just a question of law. Is it considered equal to, is it called meitav? It's not called meitav, that's all. Is metaltalin called meitav or not called meitav? That's all. Nothing to anyone's desire or not desire. So there's different positions, but the reshus but as far as the reshus, Reb Papa will hold they're all equal. I mean, once you say it is meitav, once you say metaltalin is meitav, then it's an equal partner. You can pay with cash, check, or money order, right? Right. Once it's equal, then it's just like kesef or meitav. Now you just say kesef meitav and also metaltalin. If it's not, it's not. But the point is that there's no reason to say one thing is better than the next. It either is meitav or it's not meitav, right? But now we're going to have a problem. So that's okay. That's okay with Rabbeinu Tam. Okay, when we get to Reb Papa, everything will be equal, and Reb Huna just says that it's not called meitav, so it falls down a notch. But that's just the din of what's called meitav, and I'm just talking what's called meitav, but not, you know, who has the upper hand. No upper hand here. It's either Meitab, not called Meitab, but once you say it is Meitab, so then everything is equal. If you don't, if you say Talmud, go ahead.
But the issue of Rishus is an issue here. That's the last line.
Yes, in other words, we don't take away his rishus. Let's talk about that. The Haina rishus biyado litan sheize shiyirtze. You're right. So now he's saying, wait a minute. The mazik has rishus to give what he wants.
Yeah.
So again, let's go back again. In
How
other
does
words,
this fit in with the Rambam?
oh, aval das a Rambam. Now this is going to be hard. People are going to go, you ain't seen nothing. You ain't seen nothing yet. Let's see the Rambam.
Okay.
He's going to tell us.
So far we said even before we read this, the Rambam. I want to keep it in my mind here.
Yes.
The Rambam has said that there is no rishus issue altogether, right? The Shach has brought in the Rambam. Rambam says there's no rishus issue. Then he brings in Rabbeinu Tam, who's supposed to be with the Rambam on this, right? And for him there is a rishus issue. And
hold on. Say again. I lost track again. Please say again. Start from the beginning. I'm sorry.
Okay. So
the Shach. Go ahead.
So the Shach here, right?
Yeah.
He's to fight. There's three players so far, three major players. The Sma, which he's knocking down, right?
Yes.
So that's his first move. The Sma is wrong. How is he wrong? So his second move is the Rambam. The Rambam gives us a psak that to the Bezdin. The Bezdin has a psak. It's niskakin. They have to do it. There's no issue of rishus here altogether. They are obliged to make this halacha, this din. And then this third move, he brings in Rabbeinu Tam and reintroduces the question of rishus, and he says the rishus is in the hand of the mazik. So I'm just wondering how does that work? How does his Rabbeinu Tam work with his Rambam?
They don't.
They don't. Okay.
So that's why.
To work together?
No, that's exactly what he did. Very, very sophisticated move. Why do I put all this in gray? Because he's going to claim that the Bach, the Drisha, all those people that were attacking the Beis Yosef were doing it because they were reading the Gemara according to Rabbeinu Tam. But the Rambam has nothing to do with Rabbeinu Tam. It's a different shita altogether.
So he's going to dismiss Rabbeinu. All right. Right. Okay. That makes
sense. So he says, you're right. If the Beis Yosef and if the Tur and if the Shulchan Aruch was Rabbeinu Tam, you'd be right.
Right.
But they're not. The Rambam's a new shita.
Right.
So he's accusing.
Throwing the Sma with the Rabbeinu Tam also, right? Not throwing.
Yes, exactly. The Sma is really the Drisha. They're all reading Rabbeinu Tam. They're all prejudiced because of the Nazik opinions, and they're pushing that into the Shulchan Aruch and the Tur. But that's very nice for Rabbeinu Tam if he was writing a Shulchan Aruch, but he's not writing the Shulchan Aruch. It's the Rambam that is the Shulchan Aruch. The Rambam is the Tur, and the Rambam is the Shulchan Aruch. And he has a different shita than Rabbeinu Tam completely. So you guys, you just prejudice. That's all. I mean, okay, it's not that I'm making a little joke, but you guys are Ashkenazim who, refuse to see the light. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see. Right.
And you're pushing, and you're also pushing the Rambam into the Bali Tosos too, which is a big mistake.
Right.
The Rambam is an independent. He's a new shita, and that's the shita of the Tur, the Beis Yosef, and the Shulchan Aruch.
Well, the Beis Yosef is still going to be a problem because so far the Beis Yosef seems to go with the Rabbeinu Tam, in the sense that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. You're right. The Beis Yosef is a problem because he's doing the same mistake.
Yeah, maybe is he going to say that he's secretly influenced by Rabbeinu Tam?
It looks like it because he's looking at the rush. Because he's shoving the Tur into the rush with this Baal Chov issue. He didn't even mention the Rambam, the Beis Yosef. So you're right. He's also making a fatal error of pushing the Tur into the rush, who's really Tosos and the Rif and all those people. But that's a mistake. And he's going to do even greater job. He's going to then not only push the Rambam into a different sheet, he's going to take the Rif, put him with the Rambam, and say we got a beautiful Masara here. We have Rabbeinu Hananel, we have the Rif, we have the Rambam, we have Tur, and we have the Shulchan Aruch. And you guys are just fixated on Rabbeinu Tam, which has nothing to do with what's being. And even you're right, the Beis Yosef himself made the mistake, because he's reading the Rush. Who's putting them together? Who's putting, the Ashkenaz world in there and saying, well, the Rush made a little variation by taking Balchov and pushed it in. That's also a kvetch. And we're talking about where the Nizak wants Karka and the Mazik wants to give Metaltalin, and the Nizak wants Metaltalin and the Mazik wants to give Karka, and Yad of the Nizak isElyona because it works like Balchov. So, and he doesn't mention that there's not one word of the Rambam in the Beis Yosef. He knows the Rambam very well. He wrote a whole parish on the Rambam. So you're right. That's what the Shach is saying. So you guys are all pushing the Tosfos, the Rabbeinu Tam, into the Tur, into the Shulchan Aruch, and that's where you're making a mistake. If you understand that the Rambam is the sheet of the Rif, and he's independent and not like the Bali Tosfos, you'll be able to clarify the halacha very, very simply. Okay. But here we'll leave you with a. Okay, that's what he's doing. That's great work. I mean, again, these minds are so broad. I mean, first of all, they know all of Shas. Okay, how he's going to put together the Tosfos, this Tosfos will answer it. Also, I can't see it yet. But they're so clear about where everybody is. I mean, where all the pieces are and how to put them together. That's quite amazing. Okay, now he's going to do believe me, the next level down, which is going to be the Vilna Gaon and then the Nahlas David, his student, and then the Rebbe Semelzer, who lived contemporary 50 years ago. They're going to fight with the Shach. Don't think that the Shach is going to get away with this so simply. Okay, so, and that's where we're going. But we're just trying to, at this point, we're just trying to feel out the pieces and to see what the pieces are and then how they're related. The Rev Chanech Leibowitz, Olav Shoma, a great man. As I told you, he said, we may not know where everything is, but if you tell us where it is, we'll tell you what it means. Okay,
I've been thinking a lot about that quote. I've been thinking, what's his name is Leibowitz again?
Yes, Chanuch Leibowitz. Okay, he's the Rosh Yeshiva of Chavetz Chaim Yeshiva, or he was until he left the world recently. But what we're seeing here is that, and this is really Gemara, and this is why people get frustrated, because they want everything to be simple. And they don't realize that there's a complex relationship going on here between the parts. So what seems, it says Hashem put his hand on him. Okay, Hashem has a hand, that's it. It ain't that simple, okay? We always start out with the Pashtus, the crow. We always start out with it's simple. But if there's other reasons to move out of the simple text, we're going to do it. So, and that's where the Chachma lies, which is understanding the relationship of the parts. So here, what we're doing is we're learning the parameters of the problem. What do I mean, the parameters of the problem? Of course, the Pasuk, of course, the Mishnahs, of course, the Gemaras, and of course, the Rishonim. Those are the parameters. They're setting the parameters. Anything outside those parameters, if you bring me a new Gemara that they didn't bring up, we'll be very, very surprised, because these people know Shas like you know your name. And if that Gemara was relevant, they would bring it. Okay, you see, the Shach is bringing all the Gemaras that we have the word Yashiv, he's already bringing into the scene here. And all the Tosfos that are relevant, he's bringing into the scene. So the first step is defining, I don't like to use game analogies, but I'm going to, defining the chess pieces. Okay, what are we talking about and what's at stake? And they're going to set up the board, so to speak, with all the pieces. Okay, now they're going to argue about the relationship of those pieces. Okay, and our job is to understand what those pieces are and what the relationship they're setting up, and then along the way we will maybe be able to move a piece this way or that way. Okay, and that will be that we're participants in the learning situation. Okay, and we'll also learn our parameters. We're not going to give a new shita against Rabbi Akiva. No one's going to do that. Okay, but as far as the Gemara, once we know what the Gemaras are, not only our little localized myopic piece of test, but Parshas Hamocha and Lokeach and all these other Gemaras. So then we'll have all the pieces set, and then it'll be a question of the relationship of the parts, and that's exactly what's going on in the depth of it. They all know everything. They're all of Shas to them is known. The question is, which way are we going to push the Rambam? Are we going to push him into the Ashkenazic camp, or make him independent? Okay, so everyone wants to be learned upside. Now, I mean, if you say that the Beis Yosef falls into the Rambam, and then also would have pushed him in, even though he didn't mention him. But I mean, everyone's up to the first group of people are moving everybody into the Ashkenazic camp. The Shach now stands up and says, you made a fatal error here. The Rambam is an independent Shita. Okay. So now I would just like to give you an opening to this little piece. We're going to have to think about it. He's now going to read Rev Huna, where Rev Huna does not give a reshus. Biyad ha-mazik. You see? From here, and we didn't understand it completely, we spoke about it. It's not to me, it's still a little fuzzy, it's not crystal clear, but we do know that what he wants to get out of the Rabbeinu Tam is that there's no question that the mazik is in the driver's seat, and he can, whatever we tell him is okay to use, he's going to be able to use it. And that will be the din, irrespective of what anybody wants or what he wants, or if he's not around or he is around. We're talking purely what is he allowed to give, and that he gets from Rev Huna. Now here he's going to make a move in Rev Huna according to the Rambam. Let's first read it. I've thought about this. I played around with it a little. The other people who we're going to speak also are a little bit stumped about what the Shach, the Nachlas David says. This is totally ununderstandable. He gives a dochek reading, which is, he says, not in the words, okay? And we're going to have to try to put these words together, okay? But now he's going to read the Rambam. Let's just get an introduction to that, okay? Of Aldas HaRambam.
Aldas HaRambam. Nira li lefarish.
I added the word Huna. Okay, I hope that's what you meant.
Okay.
Who said the following?
According to I see. Lefarish, O kesef u'meitav.
When Rav Huna said O kesef u'meitav, it did not mean that the reshus is in the hand of the mazik to give what he wants. He can either give kesef or meitav. That's not true. Now look what he does say. Forget about my little parentheses over there. This is what he does say.
Odino al kesef hicha the Islam metaltalin. The din is that he should give kesef if he doesn't have metaltalin.
No, when he does, it's yesh. The tough is a shin.
Yesh lo metaltalin. So Odino al kesef. So he should give kesef even if he has metaltalin?
Well, when he has metaltalin. If you have kesef and metaltalin, that's why I put them together. Kesef and metaltalin, the mazik must give kesef.
Okay.
Dino al kesef, heka the islay metaltalin. When you have kesef and metaltalin, the din is you must give kesef. Okay. Number two.
I see.
Okay,
So,
is that clear?
Yes, now it is, yeah. So either he gives, if he has kesef or metaltalin, he has to give kesef. And if he does not have metaltalin, he has to give karka.
Yes, if he doesn't have metaltalin, then he has to give karka. Now, this case he didn't speak about, by the way. What happens if he has, right, well, or the Shach didn't talk about it.
Nobody.
But okay, let's spell the last. What happens if he has? What happens if you have karka and metaltalin, which is really our case, isn't it?
he has karka and metaltalin, so he has
The
to give
Rambam
karka.
says if you have karka and metaltalin, what do you give?
The Rambam says you have to give karka. No, metaltalin.
Metaltalin
Metaltalin comes
lechatchila, right?
Yeah, yeah. Wait, so no, but the second one here is saying the metav gabi karka echa delays metaltalin. So he should give karka if he does not have. If he doesn't have metaltalin, if he has karka and kesef, say. Well, but no, because it doesn't make sense. No. If he has, in other words, if he has only karka, if he either has, that's all he has. He has karka, so that's all he has to give, because he doesn't have metaltalin, and I assume he doesn't have kesef. It wouldn't make sense that he has kesef. So if he has kesef or metaltalin, he has to give kesef. If he has only karka, he gives karka.
Right.
That's a reading of Rav Huna.
That's supposed to be Rav Huna. Now we have to read, how is that Rav Huna? V'chlal.
Well, because he's saying, I see now. So he's saying, "O kesef." Take that by itself, like "O kesef," meaning either you give kesef even though you have metaltalin, or if you've got nothing, then you give metav. That's how he's reading it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
O kesef. Trying to think. So the scenario that he's ignoring is what? Is make.
What happens if you have metav and metaltalin? See, that's this one here. He didn't talk about it.
Right.
Well, what now would you infer if he had metav and metaltalin?
That Rav Huna would say.
Yes, what would Rav Huna say?
Rav Huna's position.
Yeah, what's Rav Huna's position in that case?
Metav. Metav, because given Rav Nachman's objection, it would have to be Metav, because he puts metaltalin last.
Okay.
That's the simplest reason.
You're falling into the Ashkenazic hole because you're prejudiced by Rashi.
So what do you think? Okay, wait. So how would it be metaltalin? Because you're saying in other words that metaltalin is kesef.
Metaltalin is kesef, but kesef is better than metaltalin, and only if you don't have.
Right. So
the only time you can give
metaltalin.
metaltalin is in the middle. What did the Rambam say?
Yeah.
That you give metaltalin over.
Metaltalin first, over karka.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is okay. So that works at the Rambam, right? In other words, that the Rambam he didn't mention kesef because that was also implied in the Rambam.
Oh.
You give him that.
Oh, yes. Now he holds. Yeah. Now look what he says here before we get into this little thing here, which is, and he says, he continues, ubahor de kesef, and this, when it comes to kesef, lo kaimelan karev huna. When it comes to kesef, we don't hold like Rev Huna, el afilu subin meitav ninu. But we say even subin is meitav. What did, this is very, we're going to have to really think about this. These are heavy thinkers. But what did he say? He said, you give kesef when you have metaltalin, right? In other words, kesef is greater than metaltalin. That's what Rev Huna said, according to him, right?
Yeah.
Right? But we don't, the Rambam says that that's not the halacha, that metaltalin is less than kesef. That's what Rev Huna thinks, that metaltalin is less than kesef. But Rev Papa thinks that metaltalin is equal to kesef.
Right.
So lagabe that din, the mazik can choose between metaltalin and kesef.
Right.
But the halacha is like, wow, Rev Huna, that meitav is less than both of them.
Why? Why would it shift to Rav Huna? I missed that.
Just look what he said. Now, okay, we're going to have to think about it really deeply, but he says like this. The way he learns is that when you have kesef and metaltalin, the din is on kesef. In other words, kesef is better than metaltalin, correct? If you have only kesef and metaltalin, what do you give?
You give kesef.
You give kesef.
This is
Now, this is Rav Huna,
yes.
who holds that kesef is better than metaltalin. But Rav Papa holds that kesef is equal to metaltalin.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the halacha, as far as Rev, is really like Rev Papa when it comes to kesef and metaltalin, that you can give either one.
Okay, but yeah. But he's not. But you're saying that the Rambam is not going along with that here. Odino al kesef hechad the Islam etal.
Exactly.
He's the Rambam. The Rambam is following Rav Huna on that point.
No, the Rambam will follow Rev Papa on that point. On this point,
Why?
when you have kesef and metaltalin, he'll follow Rev Papa and say that kesef is equal to metaltalin.
You're saying okay. This is the Rambam's Perush of Rav Huna. Here,
This
right?
is the Rambam's.
Odino al kesef hechad Islam. His Lafarish Rav Huna. It's not his own opinion. He's not saying
Right. No, he's
exactly.
exactly.
Right. So
He's Mafarish Rav Huna.
He's
Yes.
Mafarish Rav Huna, right? But he himself holds with Rav Papa, right? Okay. Which puts metaltalin first, and therefore makes it equivalent to kesef. Okay. Okay, and the second part? Doesn't have metaltalin. This is the Rambam's reading of Rav Huna, right?
Right.
It's still the reading of Rav Huna. So he doesn't have metaltalin, so he has to get karka.
But if he has metaltalin, the inference,
So he should give metaltalin
right,
because it's closer to kesef.
right.
I see. Okay. He's worked in the Mishnah into Rav Huna in a sense, right? What do we talk about that? I have this vague memory of saying that that Rav Huna may be commenting directly on the Mishnah, right? We're saying he's not disagreeing with Rav Papa and really.
Well, no, he is.
So.
Well, he is according to this reading, he is disagreeing with Rav Papa on the point of only on one point, really, on 2 points actually. He's disagreeing on Rav Papa on both points actually.
Well, I mean, it is on both points because he has a hierarchy. He has a 3-point hierarchy: kesef, metaltalin, and karka.
Right. And
the Rambam's reading of Rav Huna is kesef, metaltalin, karka. So Rav Papa flattens the whole thing out, makes them all equivalent. So he's disagreeing on both points.
not okay. Just 1 second. This is a tricky business over here. This is not it requires to burn a lot of gray matter here. Because let's read what he says. Okay, again. He says, what did Rav Huna say when he said, "Oh, kesef o meitav"? He said, your money or your life. In other words, you either give money, and if you don't have money, then you give meitav. Right? That's number one. That means the only time you give meitav is when you don't have money. Oh, kesef. Or you give kesef. And if you don't have kesef, you give meitav. Right? So Rav Nachman said to him, what do you do with Shaveh kesef? He said, that's only when you don't have kesef.
Right.
Not when you don't have both.
Right. So then you give, right, so it still comes before karka.
Yes,
Okay.
and it comes after
That's a nice
kesef,
reading.
and it comes after
Right.
kesef.
Right. It's a nice reading. I mean, it's totally coherent.
Yeah, you know, it's
Again, because the
coherent.
pasuk,
Yeah, go ahead.
the pasuk does connect kesef with metaltalin. That's the immediate connection. So it makes sense that that's the question. That's Rav Nachman's question, and that's Rav Huna's answer.
Right.
Nachman is not asking generally what is better, kesef metav or kesef metav together, or metaltalin. He's saying, wait, there's a pasuk that says kesef or metaltalin. What about those two? Never mind karka.
Exactly.
He's saying, in other words, Rav Nachman is agreeing with Rav Huna. He's saying, look, of course I agree with you that metaltalin is below kesef. That's a given. The question is, what do you do with,
No.
that karka is below kesef?
Yes.
He's saying,
Beautiful.
I agree with you that karka is below kesef. That's for sure a given. The only question I'm asking is, what about metaltalin? How does that fit in with kesef, not with karka? That's a given that karka is on the bottom.
Right.
Is that equivalent to kesef, yes or no? That's what he's
Right.
asking.
Exactly.
Is, no, it's not. The answer is no, it's below kesef.
Right.
Therefore, we have our hierarchy.
Right.
Okay. It's hair splitting, but it totally makes. It's actually not. It's not hair splitting. It's nice. It works very well. I really like it because it does justice to the pasuk. Because after all, the pasuk does not bring in karka. I mean, that's the whole rumia is bringing in a pasuk with two elements against our major pasuk, which has to do with karka. So it's nice to keep those two elements together because that's what they come to us anyway.
Right. So Meitav was not an issue. Meitav is definitely less than kesef.
Yeah.
So, but what's the relationship of now Yoshev?
Right. You know what? This I haven't really thought it up thoroughly here, but this reasoning is close to Rav Papa. I'm not saying they come to the same conclusion, but it comes to the Mizdabin issue here.
Yes.
If, in fact, right, Kesef is on top, so the issue is always going to be Mizdabin, so let's knock Karka down to the bottom. I mean, this depends on how we read Rav Papa, of course.
Exactly.
Right? If we read him with a strong, if we underscore the Mizdabin, so we're going to say that actually, like, who was it? Was it the Bach who said that Rav Papa would really put Kesef on top?
No, that's the Ramah,
right?
with a hey, Reish Mem hey. That was the Muki Yosef quoting the Ramah. He put Rav Papa. He was the one that said that the Muki Yosef said that the triple hierarchy of the Ramah with a hey came from Rav Papa.
Right.
And it was all purely in Svara. Right? Because we don't, I mean, Rav Papa, you can learn the way you want to learn. I mean, there's nothing hechrach. But he said since the Svara is money, then everything that's close to the money gets a priority. So we have a triple hierarchy. Right? So here, Rev Huna is agreeing that Kesef is better than Meitav Karka, like Rev Papa, really. Meitav, the Karka's in the bottom. But the only question of Rev Nachman was, where do you put Shabbat Kesef? Is it equal to Kesef or less than Kesef? But Bade, they're both better than Meitav.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
So the Shach is claiming that you guys just don't know how to read the Rambam.
Right.
The Rambam has a different reading of Rev Huna. And a different reading of Rev Papa, and a different reading of Rev Papa too. Really the only question between Rev Papa, in other words, Rev Papa and Rev Huna agree that Karka is the worst. Their only disagreement is where does Shavah Kesef come in? Is it equal to Kesef or less than Kesef?
Mm-hmm. It's nice. So then it does take away when we look at the O. You know, I said before that the word O, when we emphasize O, then the issue of Rishus comes to the fore. But this pushes it away again because in the way he also says it, Odino al Kesef, Odino b'meitav. Right? So the din, the Rambam is not interested with Rishus here. He's just saying, look, this is the din. The din is Kesef, metaltalin, and karka. That's the din. That's the hierarchy, and that's what we follow. It's not
Well,
going
be
to disrupt
careful, be
anybody
careful,
else.
be careful, be careful,
Huh?
because he's going to say that the Rambam holds, for some reason, that the halacha is not like Rav Huna when it comes to when it comes to kesef, because there we say that even soup is called meitav. Slowly, look how we're
Oh,
setting
yeah,
up
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
look how we're setting up now. Now we're setting up beautifully. We're saying really the machlokus between Rav Papa and Rav Huna. We'll go where they first agree. Rav Papa and Rav Huna agree that karka is the worst. They both agree the karka is the worst. And Rav Huna says you either give kesef or you don't have it, then you give karka. That's the worst. Rav Nachman only wanted to know about the relationship between kesef and shava kesef. So Rav Huna said to him, well, shava kesef is less than kesef. Of course, they're both better than meita, but it's less. And Rav Papa disagreed with Rav Huna, and he said, no, kesef is equal to shava kesef. So the Rambam in the machlokes between Rev Huna and Rev Papa, Pesachs like the Basroi, Rev Papa, and the only machlokes between Rev Papa and Rev Huna was whether Kesef was equal to Metaltalin or not. So the Rambam says Kesef is equal to Metaltalin, and the halacha is not like Rev Huna that Kesef is better than Metaltalin.
But right, but
it's all dinim.
instrumental.
It's all dinim and has nothing to do with who wants what. There's no tinus and based in. I want this, you want this, you want that. Nothing to do with who wants what. The question is the relationship of, first of all, Kesef to Karka. There, Rev Huna and Rev Papa agree that Karka is a stepsister to Kesef. And the only real focus they had was with Shava Kesef. And the Rambam holds like the Rif, that Shava Kesef is equal to Kesef, unlike Rav Huna. So they were never arguing about Karka. That always was in the last position. And their only dispute was where does Metaltalin fit in? Is it equal or less than Kesef? And the Rambam holds like Rav Papa, that's equal.
So when Rav Papa says, Kol mile meitav, he's not talking about meitav. He's not talking about karka.
Oh, Vada is not talking about. He said chutzmi ara. Clearly not. He clearly says kol mile meitav bar mi ara.
This is Rav Papa says that?
That's exactly the words of Rav Papa. Kol mile meitav bar mi ara. De omer rachmana meitav lichotz oleha.
Because ara generically. No, but what I meant is meitav. I meant meitav ara. When he says kol.
Exactly. There is a condition in the word meitav here. There's the term is being used ambivalently. I mean, in two different ways. Because when first Rev Papa said, "Kol mile meitav hu, chutz mi ara." Ara is not called meitav. Now, why did the Torah give meitav haaretz? Don't confuse the word meitav haaretz with the word meitav. It's not meitav because you don't have as many customers. The Torah lowered the bar and said when you don't have meitav metaltalin, then you can give meitav haaretz because it comes up almost to. It's not meitav.
So it is almost.
But not equal.
Wow.
But not equal. It's acceptable. We'll accept it when you don't have metaltalin, but it's not a substitute for. But it is acceptable when you don't have it.
Okay, it works.
Okay, it works,
it's
but
freaky,
it's exactly
it's freaky what it's doing to Rav Papa. Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
It's really dissecting him.
Right. And we're using the word meitav.
But it does,
yeah, it's using also the word meitav in two different senses. Of course, the kol mile meitav, who in one sense means that it's very close but not equal to money because you can cash it in very quickly, right? And then the Torah came along and said, Meitav Haaretz, not to say that it's Meitav, but just to say Meitav Haaretz is acceptable. But not that it's really Meitav, because it's less convertible than metathlon.
Yeah, on the contrary, the fact that Meitav has to become explicit means it's needed as a qualifier of Ara, that Ara by itself is never Meitav.
Exactly.
As such.
As
so the
such.
Qualifier has to, right, as such. That's why the qualifier comes in. That's why Meitav, it's like, he's saying Meitav is, I was going to say, it's not quite right though. It's almost like saying Meitav as a noun applies to everything except to land, where it can only be used as an adjective. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like in an unqualified sense, everything is Meitav except for Ara, where there the word Meitav comes as an adjective to qualify.
Right, but it's not really Meitav, but it's not Meitav. It'll never be Meitav, but it's acceptable. The Torah, it's a ribui. The Torah was marba into what's called acceptable for the mazik, but it'll never be Meitav. Wow.
Does Mile, when it says kol Mile is not like Milim in Hebrew, right?
No, Mile means Devarim.
It's Dvarim, so the same, okay, it's the same equivocation, or the same double meaning.
Yes. Yeah. Mile could be things too, right? I mean, no, Mile are things, exactly, Devarim, right?
Right.
And it has to be talking about movables because it says except for land.
This is fantastic. This means just to think that this was in the Rambam's mind. I mean, it totally makes sense. It's totally logical. It's just funny that the Rambam didn't write this down. It would have been a big help. But I see what you mean now. Actually, this is the first time I actually see what you mean by how frustrating it is that the Rambam did not write down his svar. Because this is very complex. I mean, I understand why he wouldn't have written it down, but I kind of wish he had.
Exactly.
We have the Shach to do it for us, so it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, we wish he would have had the Rambam on the Rambam. He would have written a Tosfos on himself. He was going to. He said again. Originally, he started out from what I read and what I heard. Originally, I didn't read inside in his actual words, but what I've heard is that originally he did this just for himself. He did the Mishnah Torah for himself to put together a body of halacha and to know what the Pesach is everywhere. And then he saw it was valuable, and then he put it out. And then when he was attacked for his sources, so he said he really meant to write a parish on his work and explain where he got what he got. He just never got around to it. You see, I mean, this is one small point in a vast ocean of halachas, right? Everything from birth to death to the geras and kashrus. I mean, this is one tiny particle. And look how much thought went into it. I told you one time, you have to do Hagbor, you'd never be able to do it. I mean, but that's always that's the problem here, you see, because at a certain point, you're supposed to be able to put everything together from the pieces, right? You're supposed to create the whole matrix from the key pieces that are given. But the problem is, as the generations go on, the relationships start being argued about. So the Rambam, I mean, is the Rambam. I mean, he had to do what he had to do because he had to say he felt he was saving Klal Yisrael. Because no one was learning properly. I mean, who has the head to do this? You know what I mean? And he's fighting the Balei Tosfos over there. You know, he says also, I mean, you just are not reading. You're not reading Peshat right. What can I tell you? And I'm following the Rif and the Rabbeinu Hanan. Okay, you guys have Rabbeinu Gershon, fine. You have a different Peshat in the Gemara, but So I have to save Klal Yisrael, and I have to put it together so Klal Yisrael knows what to do, because the heads are not holding in a place where they can understand the relationship, the complex relationship between the parts in the matrix. But everyone says to the Rambam, it's nice. That no one's going to argue the Rambam is not a tremendous Gaon Adir, the Nesha Hagadol. But by making your Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, no one can no one could check out what you're doing. Well, it won't help you guys. You just, have to write everything down. I mean, but I mean that's the problem here. It's called Hitkatna Sidoros, and it's a very the end of the Rishonim is a milestone, and especially Rambam is a milestone, because you see what happens is again what happens is that the halacha people become less concerned with the matrix of the Gemara, and they start handling the Rambam in and of itself, as if he's told you everything, which he said is not telling you everything you need. But he didn't tell you everything he needed, because he's also writing a Kitzer. So if you don't have him with the context of the Gemara, you also don't understand what he wants. You know what I mean? So it's again this catch-22, where if you have to write down halachas, or else no one will know how to put on tefillin in the morning. But on the other hand, you lose the connection to the Masara, which is the Mishnah and the Gemara, and and that's a very big problem. The Sephardic learning becomes much more halachic, and actually up to this day, two basic streams going on. There's the halachic stream, where the people read the Shulchan Aruch, and they become bucky in what to do. And then there's the yeshiva stream, which is the Ashkenazic yeshiva stream, which is much more based on learning Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos first. If you don't know Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, then you can't go further down the line. That's called inside out and not outside in. So, and this is really, nowadays you have the poskim and you have the lamdanim, and I mean, and they're two different worlds. I mean, of course, there's a middle ground where they meet, but a lot of times there's a divergence here, and it's on this point, because once you start divorcing from the Gemara itself, so then it's very hard to get back. Very hard to get back. Now, if you looked at what the Beis Yosef did, the Beis Yosef took the Tur, who was also influenced by the Rambam to make a halakhic book, and he made the connection between what the Tur said and what the Gemara said, or at least what the Rambam. He made the connection in this case between the Tur and the Rush, and he added in this whole piece of Malva, which is a Gemara. So, but he's trying to do that. The Beis Yosef is trying to find the connection into the Gemara to the Tur. And then he goes to the Rambam also, and he writes Kesef Mishnah on the Rambam. And then finally he puts together his conclusions. However, here we're arguing about what his conclusion was. Was it pure Rambam? And was Rambam different than the Tosfos, or was it really Tosfos, and he's talking about a special case? So that's what the big fight is over here. But this is the dilemma that we run into, which is understanding clearly what's being said, because not everything that's being said is, it's like it's being quoted out of context. So if you just learn what it says here out of context, you're going to come to a different understanding if you put it back into context. And that's the learning now. That's really the learning. Now, there's a whole people that focus on the Rambam, and even the yeshiva world, I'm not sure why, but I know Rabbeinu Chaim focused on the Rambam. I mean, the great yeshivas, there was a shift, a very big shift to the Rambam. I can't tell you why. I don't know why. Could be because it's much easier to get in. I mean, it was a pretty tragic place, or I can't tell you why, but the Rabbeinu Chaim moved to the Rambam, and then he had 5 students from Brisk. Reb Chaim Brisk moved, and that, by the way, this move to the Rambam was I don't want to say it was different than the yeshiva world. The yeshiva world is always Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos as a base. And once you have that as a base, you go. When you go into the Rambam already, like a person like Reb Chaim Brisk, who's one of these super geniuses again, he's able to do this type of work in the Rambam. He doesn't talk on this piece, but he's able, like Shach, to do this type of work. But most people can't put the two things together. I mean, not everywhere, but in a place like this, you have to be very, 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 talented to put the Rambam together with Rav Huna and Rav Papa. And by the way, the Shach is now going to bring another Gemara that talks about Yoshiv, and he's going to say that's the basis of the Rambam's Psak, Government Basin, which we'll get to next. But what I'm saying is the yeshiva world classically was Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos. Okay, and also the Mashor and the Maram. There's a lot of people we didn't get involved in this piece, but it was all that the Gemara itself. And then, as a result, to look in the Shulchan Aruch and see if it follows the Ashkenaz or the Rambam's view. But from Reb Chaim Reed Brisk, it moved to Rambam, and his students were, for instance, the Chazon Ish, right, in Bnei Brak, you know. He was a tremendous, again, you're talking about big scholars, but that was his main student, and you had, he had 5 students, but one was Issa Meltzer that we're going to do in the Eben, also on the Rambam, and okay, so there's a shift in the Brisk school to the Rambam, and the problem is that again you have Reb Chaim Brisk is one of these super geniuses. He writes very briefly. People think that they know what he's talking about, and you have to be very well versed to understand what he's saying, because he's talking way at an upper level after you learn all. He's not talking to kids that are just learning Mishnah and Gemara. I mean, he's talking to people who are well versed in all these problems. So it becomes a very difficult study, and what happened in our yeshiva is, because Rabbi Goldstein started learning with Reb Chaim Zimmerman, who was a student of Reb Baruch Ber, who was a student of the Reb Chaim Brisk. So the yeshiva moved from the classic Gemara Rashi Tosfos to Rambam, and that left a lot of people in the dust, because you have to be at a very high level to understand where the Rambam is holding in the Gemara. In the Gemara, you start from A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, like we did here in this piece with the rush. Everything is following from the inside out, and you're able to follow it. Of course, it could be deep, it could be complex, but you're able to follow. When you jump to the Rambam, there's this big gap, and then you have to put all the middle pieces in from the Gemara to the Rambam together, and that becomes a very sophisticated level of learning, which I always felt that, you know, just personally, our yeshiva suffered when we went there, because two and two was not 4, because there was too many other variables hanging around that you didn't know about, and it was very hard to hold on to. So, but anyway, that's life. That's what it is. So we're going to continue. When, you know, there's a lot of action happening here. This was a very important issue, because the Nachlas David is going to focus over here and he's going to say he can't make heads and tails of the Rambam. We just did, so we have to say, well, why couldn't he? You know, but it's not, the Shach is not simple either. But we're going to read through him. We're going to stop here. We're going to read through him and go further to finish him. Once we finish him, then we'll go to the Nachlas David. And he writes.
Deals with
first you have to do the Gra. No, he's right in here. He was an Av based in also, and he's right in here in the halacha. He's a stupid Gra. No, he can't make sense of the Rambam. He can make sense of. He can't make sense of the Shach. Yeah, he can't understand what the Shach means over here. This little piece that we just put together, he cannot make sense of it. He has objections to it. He says the Shach. He's going to attack the Shach here on this piece. Okay, so we're going to have to read him carefully. I mean, and he's going to end up saying that really the Shulchan, the Rambam is really the Ramah, and is really Reb Papa, and it's really what the Nemuchi Yosef said in Reb Papa. And this he wants to, he tries to put it together a different way, but we'll see it. And then we'll have the Rav Issa Meltzer, and he's going to separate the tour. He's going to make one little slight adjustment, and he's going to say it's very nice for the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch. You're correct, but the tour is different. He's going to say that the tour is really the Rush and the old Ashkenazic view, and it was the Shulchan Aruch that started with the Rambam, who he quoted verbatim. And he's going to show that there's a distinction over there. Whereas the Shach is going to put all of them together. He's going to put the Torah, the Shulchan Aruch, all together with the Rambam. Okay, so that's where we're going. And as I said, this is a demonstration piece, because although, every piece has its interreactions in the matrix, but if you don't understand what's going on, so it becomes one big confusion, a spaghetti of wires. But if you understand that everything is going step by step, and we just have to understand they're arguing on a point, what point, where's the point, then you can put everything together, okay? And then, B'ezras Hashem, you'll have something else to add. I mean, the Torah is here for everyone. So if you can get to the level where you understand the pieces very well, you understand what's at stake, then you can add your little things here and there, You can either defend the shach, you can knock out the shach, you can, remove, you can do what you'd like. I mean, of course, again, we're learning limitations. They say you can fight with Tosfos, but if you're a fool if you do. So in the freedom of thinking, like we could say anything we want. You're totally free to say any possibility. When it comes to the Masara, so we limit ourselves. We don't say that we're smarter than the Rebbe Kiva and Rebbe Shmuel, and we don't say that we're ready to, replace, give a sixth answer in the Gemara. We could say it in thinking, but if they didn't give it, we presume that they knew about this possibility and they're taking the best possibilities. Okay? Anyway, what it is, Baruch Hashem. So we'll see you
Sunday night, yeah?
Sunday night, B'ezras Hashem, to continue this great saga.
Yeah, it's great. It is great.
Okay.
It's tasty.
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Oh, you have best wishes from
Yeshua?
What's
Yeshua.
Sharp.
Yeshua, yeah.
Oh, Yoshua. I call him Rabbi
Yeah.
Sharp. Rav Sharp. Yoshua. Okay. Anyway, you have Dirshat Shalom. He asked about you. And I said, no, we're still learning. We're still going down into the depths, Yeah. Baruch Hashem. I always, in my life, I've always had select students for some reason. And the reason is because this stuff is deep. You have to have the Sitzfleisch and the mind to keep going. If you get nervous and you want to go fast and learn, it's not what I'm doing. So it only works with, you're part of the few who have gotten into our yeshiva here. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Okay.
I told Yeshua, he asked me, he says, how's your learning going with Reb Chaim? I don't remember the whole conversation, but at the end I said, he's my Rebbe. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Baruch Hashem.
People used to say Rebbe, and like when the way kids talk about Rebbes, in yeshiva, and I never understood what they meant. But I'm pretty sure this is what they mean.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm showing you the derech, and Baruch Hashem. And my strength, by the way, is I'm only bringing you what they say. Okay, I'm also organizing it, and we're talking about it, but I'm not interested in anything except understanding what they say and why they say it. And that is my Rosh Hashiva used to say, Reb Goldstein, let the text tell you how to learn. Let them tell you what's at stake. They're very clear about it. Okay, they may be subtle, but they're very clear. So let them talk and explain. As it says in Pirkei Avos, the best thing is shtika. Try to be quiet and understand what's at stake, because it's a very subtle, I don't like to use the word game, but it's a very subtle issues here that are being handled. Okay, have a great one. We'll see you on Sunday. B'ezras Hashem.
Thank you. Okay.
Call to. Shabbos.